Watch back in 2012 said, come along, we'll build this world ourselves. A ship, a gun, a life to make your own. In this vast, starry space, you won't be alone. But months turn to years, and years turn to cries. They call the next update, look up to the skies. They show us the stars, but they shift in the night. Promises fade, out of mind, out of sight. Oh, CIG, you got us waiting still. On dreams and code, on patches and thrill. You say it's coming, then pull back again. A quarter a year, when does this road end? We're chasing stars, but just a drifting dialogue, peering into the dark of this eternal backlog. Remember the talk of a grand campaign, Squadron 42 coming soon, all the same. But soon turns to someday, and hype to doubt. Another dream stalls, leaving us without. We've seen plans vanish, seen features fail. Once promised to be ours, now hollow halls. A promise in hand, but they drifted astray. A vow turned to whispers, fame of the day. Oh, CIG, you got us waiting still. On dreams and code, on patches and thrill. You say it's coming, then pull back again. A quarter a year, when does this road end? We're chasing stars, but just a drifting dialogue, peering into the dark of this eternal backlog. But here we stand, with credits in hand, loyal to dreams built on shifting sand. We laugh, we rage, yet still we play, believing perhaps there'll be light one day. So we'll write out each patch, each quarterly slip, build ships in our heads, make ready for trips. They say next time we'll get there, just hold on tight. But the stars, they seem dimmer with each passing night. Oh, CIG, you got us waiting still. On dreams and code, on patches and thrill. You say it's coming, then pull back again. A quarter a year, when does this road end? We're chasing stars, but just a drifting dialogue, peering into the dark of this eternal backlog. So we linger on, under galaxies wide, bound by a promise for this cosmic ride. Through whispers and hopes and visions unclear, we'll play on, keep waiting, year after year.
What's wrong?
Oh, well, hello.
Well, yeah.
Bro. Howdy.
Well, jeez.
The Schizophrenia Variety a Minute is outer. What the fuck was that? I think I just had a stroke.
Did you say English?
Yeah, I'm having a stroke. Anyone else smell burnt toast?
We have to go back and clip that from the fucking podcast. What you
Please.
said though.
I need to know what I said because
Please.
I
Oh
like
my
blacked
God.
out.
Oh my God, what is that timestamp? We're at like oh fuck, it's hard to tell. Okay. We're about 10-15 minutes in. We'll remember.
I don't know what I was trying to say.
Until you get to the tank.
Yeah.
How much is the Cyclone AA? Okay. Well, I know. I'm just curious because so the Cyclone AAA is 151,200 as listed on Urkel and UEX. Or not UEX, as listed on Urkel.
Wex.
And they have the same price on Urkel on the Storm AA. They have that 476,000.
Okay, apparently they couldn't hear any of us. Thanks, Ghost, for pointing that out.
Oh, well, good to know.
My dog.
So we've had 10 minutes of
Wait.
just us talking and no one.
So
All
my
right.
stroke wasn't picked up.
I
No,
hope
they got
so.
yours. I turned on the mic just in time for your little stroke. We're good.
Oh, he could hear everyone but Kelbeck.
He can
So-
only hear me having a stroke.
So we'll go back. We'll cover it just very briefly. So we started with the Gray Cats, right? So the Gray Cat PTV, the Gray Cat STV, and the Gray Cat Rock. We believe that the
STV.
prices for the Gray Cat PTVs acceptable, 28,350. Perfect. I think that's a pretty sweet spot. Gray Cat STV, again, driving functionality, holds 1/8 SCU container and personal weapons for the driver and the passenger, 75,600. I think that's pretty reasonable. Plus, it's actually pretty speedy. It's pretty nice. Gray Cat Rock. Now it's industrial, mining, meant for one person, relatively compact, holds a decent amount. It's only used for gems, 103,950. I think you could probably pay that thing off in Pyro on your first mining expedition very easily.
Mhm.
Pretty good price then. I think those three are good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now let's look at the Origin series, which we already did, but no one heard us, so we're going to go over it again. Origin X, Origin Velocity, Origin Force. In order, 105,840, 119,070, 132,300. I think that's a pretty logical step of progression for the Origin X series. X1 series, excuse me. Moving on to the Pulse.
Mhm.
Pulse, where you at, Pulse?
I think you passed it.
It's up here somewhere. There. All right, so the Mirai Pulse is 185,220 UEC. Okay. That is a step up from even the X series, right? The last of the X series was 130 something thousand, 132,000.
Yeah.
So it's slightly more compact, has still a little bit more firepower. As far as speed, I don't know which one's faster, but let's just say
Probably it depends because if you're
probably
talking
the X series.
And yeah, in space, 100% the X series. On
Yeah.
ground, that would be something to find out because I don't really know, and I haven't flown the X1 much, but I know in space the pulse is slow as molasses. It is terrible.
Well, one thing I know for certain in the realm of technology is the smaller you get, the more expensive it gets for some reason. Well, I know the reason, but we're not going to go
Is
into the
that right?
details of it. Oh yeah,
Man, I could have
just
been
the
living my life a whole different way. Holy shit. The smaller it is, the more expensive it can be.
yeah, it doesn't work in the sex industry.
Oh,
So don't.
shit.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, it
Well, it's
does.
Um,
not
You can
just the
charge
motion of the
more.
ocean.
Fuck.
you can't charge more for a tinier unit. Okay,
Yes, you can.
you can't.
Yeah, you just charge those guys more.
Yeah, you just do it. Oh, I
Wait,
see. Yep. No, he's right. He flipped it.
he did.
Yep.
Yep. Okay,
People are smart.
moving on.
Fair. Yep. We're all in agreement. Moving on.
They all caught up finally.
All right, got it.
So, one sec.
One Mississippi.
Thank you.
Mhm.
2 more seconds.
One Mississippi, two Mississippi.
Okay, we're good.
All
All right. So, Mirai Pulse. We're at 50,000 more credits more than the X1 series, the Force. Oh, I've got the hiccups. Gosh dang it.
Show me. Prove to me you have the hiccups. Hiccup right now. Hiccup.
do
You
it.
can see it in the
Man,
screen.
Hiccup. A hiccup right now. No, I want to see a hiccup right now.
I want-
Yes.
I wanna
yes, you
hear it.
can. Hiccup. Yeah.
Stop
Now,
being a petulant child. Do
do
it.
you have the hiccups anymore? Do you have the hiccups anymore? I probably just got rid of your hiccups. You're welcome. Uh, what is that? What we're doing with Origin and Mirai is Toyota and Nissan? It's like Lexus and whatever
Yeah.
Nissan's equivalent of Lexus is. Yeah. Because they're much nicer. Like, if you wanna talk about Toyota versus Nissan, we're looking at, like, a Dragonfly versus a hover quad.
Yeah.
That's like, you got Toyota in the fucking Dragonfly department because, like, yeah, they might be a little rugged and not great on the ice, but that's it's built to last. And then you got the hover quad, which
last.
is just like Nissan's always got problems. That hover quad's always had problems. You ever seen a 4Runner that's not got 200,000 miles on it? I mean, no, Drake is more like Tesla because, like, the panels don't line up.
That was good.
Well, they do have that one ship that, like, makes its own fuel. That's the
That's
X1,
what we
right?
do
Or
is we
that's
use
the
recycle.
85X or something?
Yeah. Something like that.
What did we say? We saw the Pulse and the X1.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, I was about to mention
Dragonfly,
that.
and then you got the hover quad as well.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh, it's faster than a pulse. It's faster than a pulse. I think on the ground too. Yeah. The Dragonfly is surprisingly fast, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that much. I don't think it's worth that much more. No. I mean, obviously, it should be a little more because of the fact that there's a second seat. I think that and an extra gun, those two things alone are like warrant, a little more.
Here's my
But
unpopular opinion, probably on this. The Pulse should be more expensive. Flat out.
interesting. Why?
The Dragonfly needs to be lowered in price significantly. Here's my rationale. The Dragonfly is made by Drake, right? It's
Yep.
very clearly like any Drake ship designed to be made from fucking scrap metal, okay? Like
Mhm.
it's not the sturdiest thing out there. It might have a second seat. That's kind of a incidental feature the way I see it. If it's fast, that's good. It's a hover bike. It should be fast. The Pulse though, like when you consider what like its size is so tiny, think of the engineering that goes into that. Compare that to a vehicle in the real world. Like if the Pulse were in the real world, it would be more expensive than the Dragonfly is because of the amount of engineering that goes into it. It is a hyper precise vehicle, right? It is
Yeah,
precision made.
true.
It's it is by itself a work of art, right? But
Yeah.
like the Dragonfly is just not. The Dragonfly is a workhorse.
That's
So
that's a very good point.
the way
Yeah.
I see it, it makes no sense that it's way more than the Pulse is. I don't think the Pulse should be more expensive. I think the Dragonfly should be less expensive.
That's valid.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. What is Yeah. Kelbeck, they can't hear you again. Your mic is cut out again. It says it's just popped up in chat.
What the fuck is going on? I had it working
Fuck
just
is
a moment
going
ago.
on?
Thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Yes. Sorry to cut you off, but I figured that'd be
No, you're fine. I obviously I would like to be heard on my own stream. It'd be kind of nice, you know.
It's worth cutting him
Every
off
now and
for, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% forgiven. Next time though, you asshole.
Next time I'll just
anyways.
let you be silent.
I was I was going on about capacitors and technology, right? So it's an old network card, network interface card, NIC. Okay. If you bought a modern one today, you can buy them for as cheap as like $15. So which means the old one is probably like $2, right? Nowhere on a piece of technology like this is not a network card, obviously. Anyone with a keen eye says this is a Pi. But even still, look at those capacitors. Fucking tiny, okay?
Yeah.
Barely see them. And this is like 45. No, this was an $80 Pi. Anyways, point being, the tinier the technology and the more refined they have to get to make that stuff, the more expensive it is. So I can understand with Crandor's logic that the Pulse would be more expensive based on its compact size. They had to really, really cram that shit in.
Mm-hmm.
God damn. So the funny thing is the last two hover vehicles. One of them is Stompy's pride and joy. It's his favorite hover vehicle. And the other one is the hover quad. Do you know how much the hover quad is in game?
$56,700.
$56,000 for the hover quad.
By far
Dragonfly is $300,000, and the hover quad is 56 grand.
And then
Now,
the last one.
Go look at the Nox. Yeah, go look at the Nox price.
Okay, but we already know. Okay, these were imported Okay, these were imported. There is an alien tax on them.
But just for the record, okay, because this is going to branch that next gap. I think this is a perfect. How much is that? It's 7 what?
722,925.
All right, and to branch that next gap, a Fury is 727,650.
But that's not full alien tech. That was shared
It's not
tech that
alien
Mirai
tech.
made.
But that's where this is where pricing, though, to me is a big thing, because like the amount of what
Look,
is the right word?
there
for
were
it?
no import costs, so Mirai is built inside the UEE as opposed to like outside the UEE in Geon space.
Wait,
Yeah,
I
they are
thought like
like
all alien stuff is like
No.
we like made our own version of their technology.
MISC is not an alien manufacturer. It's a human manufacturer that works with the Xi'an. Like it's both of them, but it's still a human company, right? So like they will use alien tech. They will have Xi'an help design their ships or whatever, but
Mhm.
like that's still a human company.
Fair.
Okay,
Fair.
So
let's-
Mirai
let's-
being an offshoot of MISC, it follows the same logic.
So let's go ahead and go back and talk about the tank and the possible bug. So the possible bug right now is if you go to Lorville right now, you will find the Tumbril Storm AA in the terminal right now for 151,200 credits. That is a killer deal. It's not meant to be. This is a bug, which we discovered later on after we were done talking about it. But this is a bug. So if it weren't a bug, drastically, like we're talking hover quad to Nox price difference, right? In
Yeah.
performance, you have a pulse that is 180. What it was 182, 185,000. Anyways, 180,000
Yeah.
versus a full-blown 4-track heavy armored missile carrying fucking tank for 151,200. That's insane.
But here's the other thing, though: is even the price, the accurate price that it should be for the AA,
In game, no.
476,000. That still seems too low for what the AA is.
Right.
The AA should almost be over $1 million tank, in my opinion.
It should
Yeah.
for sure.
Well,
I
hold
don't
on.
understand.
We have to look at all of Tumbril, right? So
what
Tumbril
is-
is kind of pricing themselves pretty low. So if you look at the Nova, so let me just pull it
Mhm.
up instead of scanning for it.
That's the
Nova's
yeah, that's the
907,000. I think it would be appropriate between the 800 and 700,000 UEC mark to put the Storm tanks. So you have the regular Storm for somewhere around 750. The Storm AA for anywhere between 8 to 900,000. Or sorry, 7. What did I say? I can't remember what I said. Anyways, 7 to 750, and then 750 to maybe 850 for the Storm AA. Then the Nova comes in at 900,000. I think that's an appropriate price jump for those tanks.
I feel like the AA tank should be the most expensive.
Well,
I think that tank should be more expensive than a Nova.
I don't think so, because keep in mind the Nova does come with 24 size 2 missiles.
The
How many
Nova
does
should be the most expensive.
Dude, I get it, but I feel like the way I kind of like think in a similar way to the way that he described the Pulse, whereas like the AA like seems a lot more precision built isn't the right word, but it leans more towards that than the Nova. You know, and it is an AA, it is very specific in its task. It's small, it's very like agile and nimble. And that it makes me feel like it almost should be like almost the top tier of the tank.
I
don't know. I don't think I agree with that.
I would counter with this. You have a combat vehicle that only carries, let's say, 32 missiles of varying sizes. Size 2s, which is 16, and then size 1s, which is the remaining number, like 24 or whatever it is. Anyways, but that's all it has. It doesn't have any extra guns, doesn't have anything like that. It's just a small one-man tank that has missiles. So now we look at the Nova. Nova is obviously noticeably bigger, taller actually, and longer, but width-wise they're about the same width.
More armor.
It has more armor, in this case more HP.
Yeah.
It has 24 size 2 missiles, so more than the 16 that the other one carries. It has 2 size 1 repeaters on top. It has a bespoke size 7 main gun and room for a total of 3 crew. I think that warrants a cost increase.
I agree. I think that the fact that it has that cannon is where most of the cost comes from. And like to speak on like the precision of like the Nova, I feel like that's a consequence of how early they made it into the game's development, where when you compare it to something like the I forget the name of it, but the new tank that we were talking about, that clearly has years of design experience behind it that the Nova doesn't.
That's
And I
true.
feel like if they were to redesign the Nova, it would be radically different. It would be more along the lines of that new tank I can't remember the name of, and you would have more of a similar feeling that it's precision made and like, you know, comparable. And
Yeah.
like not as I guess I don't know, as shitty as it. That's not the right word that I want to use, but like I get the impression you're like inferencing that it's like worse than the.
I don't think it's
I
worse,
don't-
but I think
not like design wise, like it just looks worse. You know what I mean? Like it
yeah,
doesn't look like it's as precise. It doesn't look as thought out. Like
yeah, that's a very valid point because it's
yeah,
really old.
it
go-
really is very old.
So Ghost here on the chat here says it's Chris Roberts' PR team. They're trying to cut you off, and then he says
Huh.
Nova is best tonk. If only
Yeah.
it fit in more things. And honestly,
Mhm.
I'm sure
I'm kinda
there are
glad it
those in the
doesn't-
porn industry that make the same comment.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of glad it doesn't fit in a lot of ships. If
I-
it fit in a lot more places, it would be such a nuisance.
I would argue that the Nova tank should actually be more expensive by at minimum 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could see that. Like $1 million tank doesn't sound like bad.
I mean,
know.
look at our modern day tanks, guys. I mean, they are multi-million-dollar vehicles that can be destroyed in a single shot.
Yeah.
But
Just one
anyways,
good shot.
so
Working on a
let's
siege drone.
You can
All right, so
also buy
we've-
Novas in Pyro, by the way,
Yeah.
which is crazy. That's cool.
yeah, you
Yep.
can. Stations.
Yeah.
There's another
my
comment on
goodness.
how old they are.
So, all right, let's start moving into flying. We've looked at ground vehicles. Actually, hold on. Oh, this isn't in game yet, so we can't really comment on this. When we do, I think next week's stream, guys, we could do a talk about the design of some of these vehicles, because oh man, I've got so much to say on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll do a talk on that later. So we're gonna stick with pricing. Let's go to aerial vehicles now. Let's start with the small stuff. You mentioned the
Go to
Fury.
snubs. Yeah, snub.
Ooh.
Because there's not a
So-
lot of snubs either. You got like the Furies and the Krugers.
So we have 3 Furies. All 3 of them are purchasable in game, and I can't say I agree with their pricing structure. You have the regular Mirai Fury for 727,650. The Fury MX for 727,650. And the Fury LX for 800,024,670.
Like we're paying for more carbon fiber. Damn. Come on, you can't argue with that. I think that's funny.
Take a ship that is designed for combat,
Mhm.
strip the guns off, strip all the weight out of it, add more carbon fiber, and jack up the price by
I mean,
100,000.
okay, that is exactly how race cars work. So, in
Yeah.
the idea of reality, makes 100% sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you
They
look
also
at a
added more
almost
Lamborghini-
immersive.
thrusters to the
you look at
LX.
a Lamborghini Aventador, and then you look at the track Lamborghini Aventador. It is literally like the base, and then they've added a shitload of carbon fiber and like better brakes and shit. You know those elements, but the base of it is that same thing. And then they remove like the inside of the seats, which
What?
is like your equivalent.
Now,
to guns.
you're making an argument of base versus racing, And we're making a comparison of military versus racing, and anything in the military world is exponentially more expensive than a racing vehicle.
I understand that, but like that's the only distinction I can like draw here, because you don't have military equivalents in the real world that also they're like, by the way, we also made this Formula One car. Like I don't think that fucking
another component of that is that military vehicles and equipment are expensive because that's how government contracts work. They just give the bid out to a company. The company comes back with a price, and then the government's like, okay, we'll pay that. So they essentially can just determine whatever the price is. So like they're arbitrarily expensive. I don't think they really reflect the true cost of what the machines cost to make. Like say take a tank, I think is significantly cheaper than what the military buys it for. And I would extend that to all military vehicles. So like comparing it to the Fury, that is not how it happens in Star Citizen. These are private companies. So like if a private company were to make a military vehicle and sell it on the civilian market and then make a racing version of that, I think it would be closer to how it's set up like in Star Citizen.
It makes sense that the racing Fury is more expensive. And the same with the I think it works the same way in the Razors. When you look at the Razors, I think the racing specific Razor is the most expensive one.
Well, interestingly, I don't think there is a racing Razor, is there? I think there's
there is.
Which one?
There's like
the LX. It's the LX. It's the same thing, right? That's right.
Yeah,
I forgot about that one, but yeah.
I think it's funny that anything. I was gonna say I think it's funny that anything that's racing seems to be dubbed LX, but we know in the car industry that LX is luxury.
Yeah.
You know.
In terms of features, the Fury LX does have additional thrusters the other two models don't have.
Which is actually kind of funny considering it actually doesn't maneuver any better. And also considering that the regular Furies have more weight and less thrusters and no performance change.
That's fair. I mean, I like I said, the other thing though, when it comes to the price, I guess, about these, I still think that you could almost make these over $1 million. Almost all of them, all three of them. Like for one, because of how I don't know if it matters, but like they are very good. And then like they're good in the meta right now, sure. But like it also makes sense that in the lore of the game, these type of snub fighters would be really, really good.
So hold on, let's take this in comparison to how much we've been earning lately. I know the game's in a really
that's fair.
Rough state. Let's make it nice. It's in a really rough state, right? And so earning is actually pretty hard right now, even though some missions have been boosted and other missions, like I don't know. Anyways, I know making money can be relatively easy for certain reputation paths. Others are extremely, extremely slow. So in the grand scheme of earning money, this being one of the smaller vehicles that you can purchase, does the price still make sense?
Again, even considering that, I still think it could be over $1 million.
I think the LX could be over $1 million. I think the military versions though need to be cheaper.
Okay, what's your reasoning for cheaper?
They are literally meant to be expendable, and they're not economic if they're expensive. So nobody would buy an expendable ship in bulk if they're too expensive to do so.
Yeah.
So the pricing structure by Mirai needs to match that market that they're aiming for.
But are these really expendable? I mean, they don't have a quantum drive, sure, so that would knock the price down considerably because that's an expensive tech.
Well, the idea of a snub fighter in general sounds expendable. I mean, in my head, when I think of that, I think of like that's it's something that like it's not the main ship, you know?
Yeah, when I think of a ship that you can have a lot of on one ship, like take a blade from a Vanduul Kingship, to me, the blades are expendable as far as the Kingship's concerned.
Point,
so the Fury would be comparable to that.
But not necessarily every mothership should expect their smaller
That's not what I mean.
Return.
Well, yeah, but like what I mean is like obviously you want your assets to come back to you at the end of the day as much as possible, but like if you're going to lose some ships, I think you would prefer it to be the smaller, cheaper ones like a
Well,
Fury.
yeah, of course. You would expect to lose a Fury before losing a capital ship. That's
I didn't say
of course.
capital ship, I said
But
smaller ships.
but you would still expect that you wouldn't. It's not considered expendable. You're not like a missile is expendable, right? It's a consumable. You're sending it out. It's done for. The Fury should always have the chance to come back. I wouldn't consider it expendable.
Okay, yes, you're right. It should
But
always
that's
have
not
the
what I
chance
mean
to
by
come back. No,
expendable.
I understand what Krindor means too. Like some of these ships are expendable by nature. When you put them in when you put a group together, if you're gonna run like, a freelancer as a hauler, and then you've got 3 arrows that are giving them escorts, those arrows are expendable. The main priority is the cargo in the freelancer. So right now in that operation, the most expendable thing are your small ships. So in this case, and what he's meaning is those Furies are the most expendable thing out there because they are the smallest, they are the cheapest. They can't get away without help. They don't have the quantum drive. So they are just going to be expendable, and there will always be that. There will always be something. If the Vanguard is the smallest ship in your fleet, that is the most expendable ship in your fleet at that time. And they always should have a chance of coming back. Like every ship should be able to survive itself. But in the grand scheme, there's going to be somebody who's like, if you're going to die, it's going to be y'all first.
Puff gets me.
I do. I understand what you mean. I mean, I understand what Kelbeck means. Like every ship should have the survivability, but when you have a group, like if it's just a bunch of Furies, then yeah, everybody wants to stay alive. But you may still select some of those Furies to be like the most aggressive, and those guys are going to die first. Where like
it's
the missile
not
variants, they'll be out.
It's not practical to get every single ship back every single time and expect that to be the case. You need to plan like something is more lenient. You know what I mean? Like
we're
you
also
got to
not
be ready to get
planning
rid of
battle.
something.
We're also not doing battle strategy here, but I mean, all right, I can somewhat come around to your point.
It kind of is battle strategy though, because that's what a snub fighter is for. Like that's all a snub fighter is for, is battle. So like what role does it play in a battle? To me, it's the expendable support fighter.
To take as much heat as he can before he dies so the bigger ships can do their damage.
So
Right.
here's another question. Let's put a finer tip on this and say Fury versus Fury MX. They're both the same price right now. Is that appropriate?
No.
Yeah. This is a weird one too, because I would like by nature and right off the bat, I want to say the MX should be cheaper. That's my like, gut thought.
I was
But
going
like
the
if I
other
were to sit
way.
and think about it, see, and if I sit
well-
and think about it, I could understand the other way. And so I
Well,
don't know which
if
ones
you-
should be
if-
which way.
here's my take on it. I think that ships, when you buy them, should come without a fitting. That you should have enough modules to allow it to fly. As long as it can fly, it is considered a whole ship. So power, thrusters, it's really all you need. Okay? So that means you got to put, I mean, maybe radar too. Maybe that's part of your basic components. So now you got to put your shields on it. You got to put your weapons on it. You got to put. So in the sense of right now, I would say the cost is being offset by the cost of the armament. So in the current state of the game, I'd say that the MX should be more expensive because it's coming with missiles.
Understandable.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
It also has a blast shield, which would add to manufacturing costs.
Now here's where it changes things in my mind. In the game, I don't think the game will ever do this, but they do hint at these things with insurance. So I don't think we'll ever buy ships like stock, right? Without any components. But if these were sold without their weapons, let's just say armaments. Let's say they get their whatever components, but there's no armaments to any ship you buy, for that matter. Then I would say the missile variant should be cheaper. If you're not receiving the missiles with it when you purchase it. If you're buying this and then it's like you're going to put the missiles on it, it's like you're going to have to already be re-upping the missiles on it. I could see how it would be cheaper
So
than
here's
the one that has guns.
Here's my argument for the Fury, base Fury, being more expensive than the MX. Okay. Even though the MX comes with missiles, which should by nature be more expensive than the armaments on the regular Fury, I see the MX as between the two a more expendable version of the ship, because once it's fired its missiles in the middle of battle, how is it going to return home safely?
Well, and that's when you get into like a ship like that and other ships that are very use case when it comes to missiles, and you're out of projectile, you're gone. Yeah, like
Okay.
they shouldn't be like they
Where
are kind of more expendable. But
Whereas the Fury, once it's spent its missiles, which aren't its primary armament, it still has its primary armament to fight with. It still has 4 size 2 guns.
Mhm.
And that alone is immense. And it can keep fighting until it's lost, or until the battle's won and it returns back to the mothership.
Yeah.
So by that nature, I would say that the Fury base model should be more expensive than the MX, but the MX comes with a full load of missiles, which by nature are expensive, therefore it should be more expensive. So I'm not entirely
Yep.
sure which way to go on this.
No, I think your rationale there is correct, that like we're looking at when you buy a ship, what comes with it. It comes with way more missiles.
Mhm.
Like there it's 4 versus like what, 20 something?
No, you'd have to change the racks to get that high, but I believe it comes with 8 or
Is it 8?
10.
Oh right. It's the thing is they're sized up. I forgot that's what it
10.
is.
Yeah, it's 10.
I believe it holds size 3s.
You have 4 size 3
Let's
racks
actually
and
take a
then
look.
2 more and then you have 4 size 2 racks. You have a lot you have a lot of missiles on that ship. Holy shit. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 size 3 racks. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 size 2 racks. Jeez.
I don't think that's. Hold on. Where
Maybe I'm
is
reading
the.
this wrong.
So the small number at the top of the diamond is the per mount. The big number at the bottom of the diamond is the size of the mount. And the little number is the total number of mounts. So you have 4 size 3 mounts and 4 size 2 mounts. And each mount holds 2.
Okay.
So you have 4 times 3 times 2. Well, you have 4 size 3, so it's 4 times 2. That's your total number of missiles of the size 3. And then you have, actually, those wouldn't even be size 3s, because that's a size 3 mount, and then you got 2 on there, which means those are size 2s.
Wait, okay.
Are these right?
Mount.
I
No.
don't know if these are
Okay,
right.
here's what I'm looking at right now. Okay, I'm looking at Urkel and with building out like just all the missiles you could build out on here. And so you have the size 3 racks, which the one thing is these are all bespoke. You cannot change the rack the Furies have. So you can only just change the missile that goes on them. So you have the 322s, which are the size 3 that holds 2 size 2s. You have 4 of those. You have 4 212s, which are the size 2 racks that hold 1 size 2. Then you have 4 221s, which are the size 2 racks that hold 2 size 1s. So you can have 8 size 1s and then 8 size 1s and then 8 plus 4, 12 size 2s. So you have 20 missiles, which was kind of about what Krender said in the number of missiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 20 missiles. They're just spread out across sizes, and they're bespoke to whatever rack size. So it is a fuckload of missiles for a tiny little ship. And the
Yeah,
price
so
of
size 3
missiles
racks.
nowadays, I mean, one size 2 can run you about almost $5,000. So if you have 12 of those, that's what, 60,000 just for those size 2s. And then you have the other size 1s you add, which is you're looking at $5,000 per rack. So for 4 racks, another 20 grand. I mean, you're looking at like close to 80 grand for your missiles on that alone. So almost 100 grand of it is just your armaments.
I think it's funny. It's cheaper to go and buy a brand new Fury MX than it is to rearm it.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense right there, Krendor, that's your expendable ship. It is more expensive to rearm it than it is to buy it. You send it out, you fire, and then you just ditch it. That's an
See,
expendable ship.
I told you, man. The Furies, they're expendable.
So if you go to the other Fury though, regular, you only have 4 size 2 missiles.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's about
you
20
have
grand.
4 size 2 repeaters, Badgers in this case.
I'm sure it's
So
about 16 grand a piece.
while the Fury base model is cheaper to rearm, it is also one that is meant to keep fighting. So while it is far more useful than the MX.
So
The
then it
MX
should
is
be more valuable, right?
See, and that would be my argument for it being more valuable. Yes.
Okay. No, I'm
But then the
I'm trying to
cost,
make sure I understand the mindset
right?
process.
But the cost of the missiles, like you said, is almost 100 grand just to rearm it. So that ship should be worth more, and it's not.
Yeah. And this is where we start to see the weird dice roll of the prices. But also, we sit here. Here's the other thing too. And playing the devil's advocate for their side, we're sitting here. We're trying to break it down, and like we're looking at it both ways. And there's a bit of like, yeah, I understand that. I also understand that. So like that's what they're doing when they're pricing it out. So like they may be rolling dice,
we
but they're
haven't
also
gotten
think
in.
sitting
so.
there.
We haven't stepped into the deep end yet, my friend.
No, I know, but I'm just like there is a sense of you're never going to get it perfectly price matched when you look across, like when you compare it to this. We can compare the Furies to each other and be like, okay, this is how they should be. But then as soon as you take the Furies and you compare them to the Krugers per se, they might be the exact same, but they're not going to be exactly, because they're different and they have different features and there's, different design, and so that changes it. And it's like that's when I think I in these small ships it's not as bad, and I can understand where it gets weird. But like I said,
Mm.
when it gets down the road, and like you said, when it gets down the road, it gets really weird. But at these, it doesn't look so bad. It doesn't look terrible.
Hey, we have a small little discrepancy here, which I can point out. Next ship in the same price range, roughly, we're looking at the Drake Cutter. Drake Cutter comes in at 635,040. Okay, that's base model. Your next one, your other 2 models goes in 2 different directions. You have one going in the scouting direction and one going in the livability direction, right? Because the Rambler doesn't. It's all livability, right? It's exploration.
Mhm.
So 635,000 going in the livability direction is 740,880. So apparently, more amenities for livability is more expensive than high-tech sensor gear. High-tech
'Cause
sensor gear. The Scout is 705,600. I think that should be 800,000 minimum.
I would agree with that. The Scout should
Yeah.
probably be the most expensive of those.
The Rambler needs to be in the middle because it is basically just an upgraded base model.
Well, and that's how I think of like, van life nowadays. People buy
Well-
a regular van that's just storage. It's cheaper than if you were to buy somebody who built out that van to be lived in.
It is van life. Look at the roof. It has the AC unit mounted to the top.
Yeah, literally.
Valid.
All right, here's where I'm going to break your brains, guys. We're going to jump a few ships. There's plenty more to nitpick at, but we're going to stop the nitpicking. We're going to go right into the main culprits of this this talk. Let's start with the Cutlass. Okay?
Uh-huh.
The Cutty Black comes in at 2,116,800. Pretty respectable price. I think that's appropriate. Well, but I think that is a very good price. I'll put it that way. Whether it's appropriate or not, that's besides the point.
Well, and it's
So-
our baseline. That's the kind of the base model, the Cutlass Black. It's the
So
cargo
let's
variant,
go ahead and
so-
draw a line in the sand. Say the Cutty Black. Let's just say that's a good price. Let's pin that as the anchor for this conversation. Okay, now let's look at the other models. We have the Cuddy Red at 2.8 million, the Cuddy Blue at 3.7 million, and the Cuddy Steel at 3.9 million. Sorry, 3.99 million. It's almost 4 million.
The steel should definitely be in line with the black or cheap.
Yeah.
In my
Yeah, it's
opinion.
got no use case at all.
I mean, here, guys, grab a black, rip the tractor out of the back, so there's cost savings. Bolt a turret to the floor by the drop gate. Okay, so now you've taken whatever cost savings you had from the tractor, you just mounted to the floor. So now you're still looking at the same cost. Now go bolt in some seats, because that's all they did. They bolted in some seats. And there you go. There's your Cuddy Black. Your Cuddy Steel. You've taken the tractor out, you put it in a floor-mounted machine gun, and then you bolted in some seats. At most, this ship should only cost 2.3 million credits. At most.
Honestly, I think that should be the cheapest Cutlass. It should
Definitely.
Be it should.
The steel has nothing.
Yeah.
Well, no, I still think the steel has more in it compared to the black. Now, mind you lose cargo space, but you've given it a function, right? You've put in jump seats for people, and you've added a turret in the rear. Whether that's, I would still say that I'm right there at 2.2, 2.3 million, leaving the base at 2.1.
No cargo room, no tractor beam. It still has a turret on top?
The steel,
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. The
Okay.
only one that doesn't, I think, is
well. Hold on, there is one more. They've added door guns, so the steel does have door guns too, and I forgot about that.
Size one man door guns.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 of them. I don't think that makes up for the lack of cargo space. And I'll tell you why. If they took the seats out of the steel and just left it as cargo space, you could set up the same arrangement of seats.
Yeah, you could.
Basically.
I mean, you could move those drop seats up to the front, like by where the bed area is.
You can turn the Cutlass Black into a Cutlass Steel very easily just by throwing some chairs in the back, putting them on the grid.
Yeah. And here's the other thing too: the Cutlass Black almost could be more expensive, more towards the higher end, because your return on investment of a ship like that, you're going to be able to make a lot of money. It's got 46 SCU storage. You're going to be able
That's
to
not shabby.
yeah, you're going to be able to transport a lot of cargo, and you'll be able to pay that ship off and make more money with that ship. The only other one that's really going to do that, I mean, honestly, you'll probably make more money theoretically in the red than the blue. The blue is so, like, yeah, you could do bounty hunting, but I mean, medical probably would make more money if you're a private medical.
You still get 12 SCU in the red. In both the red and the blue, you get 12 SCU.
In the blue. 16 in the blue. I'm pretty sure.
Listed here is 12.
Is it 12?
But I mean,
okay.
I've never flown. Well, I don't own one, so if it's 16, then they've got it wrong here. Which
the only thing with the blue is it has unique technology via the dampener, and that can be understandably priced up along with the cryo chambers. That's it's got, I don't know.
So here's my question: is life-giving beds worth more or less than the ability to hold someone on grid?
I think more. I think
so. You think?
Yeah.
So you think that the red and the blue should? Well, okay. They're already there. So no, they're not.
No,
so the red and the blue should change places.
I mean, if you compared the real life, if you compared like the cost of an ambulance to the cost of like a Bearcat, and it wouldn't be a police car, it'd be like a Bearcat, would be like your equivalent. What is that like? Like, how much does an ambulance cost versus a fucking police Bearcat?
Well, remember, this is high-tech ambulance. You can come back to life on it.
We can give it like 60 plus points against the blue. Because you're right. No, that is much more Jurassic than just an ambulance. It's like a moving hospital in a way. So it,
The
but
Apollo
still,
owners are crying and shaking right now.
I think that's where it's like the blue, the red, and the black should be probably close to each other, with the steel being very low.
I
Because the blue,
think
the
it
red, and the
should
black
go
have a
blue,
lot.
red, black in that order.
Blue, like, and the most expensive
Really?
being the blue.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
I can see
so
that.
blue is more
I'm-
expensive. Blue rib.
The
Okay.
blue being most expensive makes a lot of sense. High tech, very like specific. You know.
Okay. So I know I haven't broken your brain yet, but we're about to. I'm gonna move to the next ship. I know we're still kind of touching on that, but I think we've come to consensus. We believe the blue is meant to be higher in cost than the red, than the black. I can agree with that.
Yeah. 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 The quantum interdictor is pretty pricey, I would imagine.
So
Yes.
here's my question. Would you, before I show you the next ship, would you rate an EMP as more valuable or less that valuable than a QED?
That entirely depends on how it functions in the game. Given ideal settings where it functions as intended, I think the EMP is more valuable.
How much more valuable?
30%.
Okay. Well, Vanguard. Vanguard series, Harbinger, Sentinel, Warden, and Hoplite. The Hoplite, the troop transport, 9.3 million.
Outrageously
Warden.
expensive.
The Warden comes in at 10.3 million.
What?
Jeez.
The Sentinel, 10.9 million. Why is it listed as an interdictor? Interdiction military. What? Okay, something's
Because
not
it
right
is
there.
technically it is because you're supposed to like interdict them by disabling their ship with the EMP.
But that's
Yeah.
not. Anyways,
And
and then
interdiction is just stopping movement.
Yeah.
but
interdiction
it
is-
doesn't stop movement.
An EMP
Yes, it
would
does.
stop your movement. An EMP would
It
shut off your
absolutely
thrusters.
stops movement. It
would
shuts
stop
your
all
ship off.
electronic.
But you
It
gotta
definitely
be able to
does.
catch up to him to begin with. It doesn't. Anyways,
I-
the
that's a different
Harbinger,
debate.
the Harbinger, 3 size 7 torpedoes. So this is your bomber, 11.5 million. Okay, so Sentinel versus Cuddy Blue. We have a ship that is 2.8 or 3.6. Hold on. 3.7 million for QED versus 10.9 million for EMP.
How much do we acknowledge the Drake versus military manufacturer price differential?
I would acknowledge it
much
to
is
a
that
degree.
worth?
I would
Like,
acknowledge it to a degree, but I wouldn't acknowledge it that drastically.
Well, okay, so how much is it? Is that like a $2 million difference? Is it 3 million?
Well, I mean,
what is enough for those?
looking at the Cuddy Black, it's probably a ship that has been designed with minimal components, but still extremely functional. So honestly,
look at the steel and
the price
hoplite,
gap
right?
shouldn't be
'Cause
this
those
big.
are-
I think the price gap should be much closer. I think the gap between these two variants of ship should be somewhere in the 2 million range.
Okay. And that's what I'm thinking. Like the hoplite is a troop deployment vehicle, and the Cutlass Steel is a troop deployment vehicle. So if the steel is at what was it, like 3.9?
Or
Then
I mean, if you round it, it's at 4 million.
so 4 million. If it's a steel's at 4 million, so by that logic, which I do agree with, the hoplite should be about 6 million.
And
Yeah?
it's not. It's at 9.
9. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I agree. That's
9.3.
like way too much. But then with the
So-
Sentinel discussion, like, so if it's 2 million, what's the Sentinel versus the blue?
So
The
here's
Sentinel's
the question.
10?
Should the Vanguard be the benchmark price, or should the black the Cutlass series be the benchmark price? Should the Vanguard come down in price, or should the Cutlass come up in price?
I think it's a false dichotomy to compare them like that.
I kind of agree with that because there's a lot of things that go into play. I mean, like the whole. If you look at it that simply, I would say that the baseline should be the military manufacturer because they are a
Right.
military manufacturer.
So
This is
yeah,
what they do.
like we brought up earlier with military contracts and vehicles tending to be more expensive. Aegis literally is a military contractor for the UEE, or at least was in the past. So all of their ships have inflated price because of that.
Which would make sense why a manufacturer like a Drake would be like, "We're going to cut you deals."
Right.
But you
Like,
also have to
imagine
recognize that these are ships being sold to the population.
that's yes.
Not
Imagine if we
to
were selling military. Imagine if we were selling F-16s to civilians. We wouldn't change the price for the
you wouldn't
civilian
sell any.
market.
You wouldn't
That's
sell
okay.
any.
You can't just disregard my hypothetical, man. I'm trying to make
I
a
know
point here.
I'm not disregarding it. I'm saying you wouldn't sell any because no one would be stupid enough to buy it at that price.
That's not the fucking point I'm trying to make here, man. If they were to sell F-16s on the civilian market, they wouldn't be any less expensive than on the military market, because then why would the government contract them to buy F-16s from that company? They would just buy them from the civilian market.
Yeah.
Depends on how many safety fuck.
Well, this
Can't
is
even-
under a hypothetical that we live in a universe where, just like in Star Citizen, a civilian can go buy a military ship. Like,
Right.
if you had the money, in this hypothetical, I could just go buy an F-16 if I
Well,
had the money.
so
Safety requirements don't matter because
even
like,
even in
death
lore,
threats, it's not
even
that.
in Star Citizen lore, anything sold to the military versus things sold to the civilian market, there's a drastic difference between those models in the sense of what is equipped to the vehicle.
That
Like
depends on the ship. Not all ships are like
civilian
that.
models are severely stripped down.
For the Hornets, yeah, because they actually have civilian models. Same with the F8. Like
But that's
ships
like
that
an
have civilian
almost-
versions, yes, you're right. But not every ship has that. Like that's an anvil ship thing mainly.
I would still argue that Vanguard is too highly priced. I think it needs to come down.
I don't
Well, okay, let's compare
disagree, but that's a
then to
different.
Anvil. Let's compare Aegis and Anvil as opposed to Aegis and Drake then, because they're both military manufacturers. So what are their
All right.
prices?
So do we have an Anvil ship that is E-War?
The Hawk.
E-War? Yeah, the Hawk.
The only in this, and like you could compare them, they're different because like size.
Well,
but I mean,
yeah, they're a very different size comparison, but the Anvil Hawk comes in at 2.6 million.
So imagine the Hawk was the size of a Vanguard.
Okay, Hawk
Do
is
you think it would be
considered
10 million?
Hawk is considered what? Small or medium?
Small.
I believe it's small.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily
So
small.
So you're going from, well, sorry, light, medium, heavy. So Hawk is light. Vanguard is heavy. So still in the small category because, anyways, why is this there? I don't see metrics on this thing. RSI page has shit information on their ships. So if we were going to go from light fighter to heavy fighter in the EMP department, coming in at 2.6 million, knowing that the Cuddy Blue comes in also at 3.7 million, then incrementally speaking, you're still looking at an EMP ship of 6.5, maybe 7, pushing it.
You know, and honestly, looking at the Hawk too, if he, like kind of Kernor said, if everything was working properly game mechanical wise and the Ps were good, the Hawk should be more expensive. The Hawk shouldn't be a $2.6 million ship. That should be like at least $4 million.
Yep, I agree with
Maybe
that.
3.5, but 4, like that sounds reasonable. And then going up to, if you made it the size of a Vanguard, you gave it a turret gunner who had extra DPS, it's starting to get to where like that Vanguard Sentinel price point, maybe a little smaller, but I mean, they're
Honestly,
similar.
I would think more expensive because it would have more guns. Like, think about how many hard
Yeah.
points the Hawk has now. If
Yeah.
you size it up to a bigger ship, it would likely keep a similar amount of hard points, just at a higher size.
Well, let's ask chat. Anyone in chat, what's your opinion? Where would you put the Vanguard series? Would you put the Vanguard series right where it's at, higher or lower in price point? Knowing that the Vanguard series is roughly around the $9 to $11 million mark.
What if? And I'm curious.
Kenshi in the audience here in Discord says lower.
Lower. Okay.
I wasn't even watching Discord. I'm glad you watched that.
Yep.
I wish the Raven had a price, because then you could compare the Raven to the Hawk. It'd be perfect.
Right?
Yeah, right.
But the Raven has 2 EMPs, not just one. I mean, they're both wired together, but
Yeah, no, it's double the capacity, but it's a moot point because that ship doesn't have an in-game price.
Yeah,
right.
Lame.
Honestly, that's a crime.
I agree.
I know why.
Wholeheartedly.
I know why they're not doing it, because they made a promise and people have spent literally $100,000.
That contract with Intel ended, by the way. They can just put it on the store now if they wanted to.
Honestly, they should, but they'd have a lot of pissed off players.
Oh, for sure. But fuck them. Fuck those
I mean,
players.
They already did it with the fucking F8. Why not? Right? Right? Why not?
Fuck the gatekeepers, dude. I can't stand them. I don't give a fuck that you bought some hard drive 20 years ago, and that means you get a special little ship that no one else can have. Fuck yourself. I want it.
Honestly,
let me spend money in the game to fly it.
Honestly, if you sold the ship in the store for the same price as you sold the hard drive, I think that'd be appropriate, or even a little bit higher.
I agree. For like the real money price,
yeah,
just to keep it a little exclusive, I agree.
Yeah, just give it a real money price and make it roughly the same price, if not a little bit more than the hard drive, just to add some moderate exclusivity. Okay, so I mean, all right, so Kenshi says lower, and I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
But it would seem that you guys are more in the other direction, that you think other things should come up to meet the Vanguard series.
Honestly, yeah, I think so. Just because they're kind of like the de facto heavy fighter. Like, if you think of like what's a generic heavy fighter, the Vanguard fits the description pretty well. It's just a larger ship with pretty decent armor, depending on the model. Big gun on the front with 4 other smaller guns right on top of it. It's got missiles. It's fairly maneuverable for its size. It's got a turret on the top. Like, it, I think, to me, is the de facto heavy fighter, and so that should be like the baseline for that size class.
Stompy, you've been really quiet. What's your opinion? Let's have you weigh in. You're one of our fighter guys.
The viability of the the Vanguard series, where it's at.
So
what's like
so
the de facto heavy.
We've compared
like
a few different things. So right now we're talking about the Vanguard series as a whole, but we've used one ship in the series, such as the Sentinel, to compare against other ships of similar E-War types, such as the Hawk and the Cuddy Blue. Hell, you know what? Let's just throw one more ship into this. Let's pull in the Scorpius.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Because that also has E-War.
Scorpius comes in at 5.4 million. And its E-War variant is cheaper at 5.2 million.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense, though.
Yeah.
In regards to those two ships.
But this is a medium class ship. 2-man. So Sentinel's the same thing, but the E-War is connected directly to the pilot. Whereas in the Antares, the E-War is connected to the gunner. But the Antares has both E-War systems. It has dampen and it has EMP. So you can fire off so you can hold them on grid. You can strip them of their shields, and then you can EMP burst them. So
Well, that's why on paper, that is a great ship. The Antares.
on paper,
It's a great
yeah.
ship. It's a great price
Yeah,
point.
on paper it's
Everything
fantastic.
about that is a fantastic ship. It's implementation, and that's a different conversation.
Right.
But as far as
Yeah.
price point goes, I think that you could put the Antares almost higher because it is so good.
Yeah.
That could be an $8 million ship almost, and people would it would almost be like, yeah, that makes sense. You know,
People would eat that shit up.
But I
Yeah,
mean, all right,
but-
so we have the Hawk at 2.6. We have the Cuddy Blue at 3.7. We have the Antares at 5.2, and we have the Sentinel at 10.9.
yeah,
So Stompy, what do you think?
is 10.
What should be where? What goes higher? What goes lower?
Hawk should be definitely top 3 out of those for sure. Antares is use case useless, no pun intended. Unless they give. Yeah. I don't understand why they don't have the fucking. Sorry, I don't understand why they don't have the Antares equal to the Cuddy Blue. If the Cuddy Blue has an QD and the Antares is just an EMP blaster basically. Like you've seen Soloman ships do it. You have the Raven, you have the Heavy Raven, which is just the Antares basically. Like they're just completely killing their market strategy in order to like make it multi-crew friendly, which doesn't make sense. So if it
The
didn't have
Antares
that,
has a
it'd be up
QED
there.
as well.
That
Yeah.
too. Thank you. Exactly.
And-
like it's a
and-
bad little ship, man. Like honestly.
Antares has QED and EMP. So it kind of I agree with its price point. I think of all the ships, I think both the Hawk and the Antares price-wise, in-game price-wise, are appropriate.
Yeah.
I
think-
the Vanguard series could come down in price.
I think the Cuddy Blue should go up at least a little bit, and I think the Vanguard series should come down a little bit. If I had to say, I think the Vanguard series should come down 2 million.
At least, yeah, I would say that's fair because it's a little outrageous for the price of those ships. I mean, they are not $9 million ships. They're just not.
I mean,
They-
how long? How many of us? Let me put this out there. How many of us have reached 11 million right now? I have barely breached 3 million. I spend more trying to keep myself going than I am earning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got like 600K, though I don't really try hard to make money at all.
I will
I mean,
say
I-
that too. The idea of making money, it's so easy to make money right now. So it's just a matter of where you put your effort. You could have 1 million
Mhm.
already right now if you wanted to. No problem. Not hard.
I
at
mean-
Really
all.
could, but
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
sitting.
Like I said, yeah.
I'm sitting on 1.3 million, so I mean, it's nothing to stick your nose up at, and I've hit that point a good number of times. But every time I hit that point, I have missiles to buy, I have gear to buy, I have, I've incurred a lot of losses that I'm trying to make up for, and making sure that I can keep myself going. So I'm constantly fluctuating between the 500,000 and 1.5 million, right?
Well,
Somewhere in that
yeah.
range, and I can't seem to get above that, despite
because
the
money
fact
is not
that
your priority.
that's part of it. Yes, I'm not constantly trying to earn money, but even if I were, like, I don't think I'd be much higher. I really don't
No,
think
you
I'd
would,
even breach 5
100%.
million.
I
I don't think
disagree,
I'd breach 5
100%
million.
disagree. I 100% disagree. All you need is one ship. It's called the Reclaimer.
Now,
Yep.
You need it.
Lord.
You take a Reclaimer and you go out and you make money. In 3 days, you'll have 11 million.
now
no
if
problem.
if I were to go and solely make money, so first off, let's say they come in and they fix all the bugs. Every bug that we have encountered so far that has cost us time and money and losses, if they fixed all those, I'm pretty confident every one of us would be at least 1 million more richer by default without those bugs.
Well, yeah, 100%. That's a given. But to say that, like, to base all these prices off of the way the economy in Star Citizen, as far as how it is to make money, like any of these ships are feasible. To say it is not feasible to afford any of these ships is in my opinion just wrong. It is easy to get any of these.
I
things.
agree with that.
Like I said, 3 days I'll have $11 million and I could have 4 fucking M50s if I want.
Okay.
I just all I need to do is just be like, all I want to do is make money right now. Somebody pull out a
Mindset,
reclaimer,
for
let's go
sure.
salvage, and all I want to do is salvage. I don't have to restock missiles. I don't have to. If somebody brings a medbed thing, I don't have to buy Lux. I don't have to buy food. I don't have to buy shit. I can sit out there and I can salvage like every single day, and I can bedlog my ship next to my buddy who's got a ship that he bedlogs, and we just relog into the same area and we just salvage, and we salvage for 3 days, and we're millionaires. No problem. It's just a matter of focus and priority.
Okay. How about 47.9 million?
For
For the hammerhead,
making
yeah.
that much.
For hammerhead.
Well,
the hammerhead is
so
salvage.
that's a hammerhead. Now it's a 7-man crew. It's 8 if you count the co-pilot, which no one ever runs a co-pilot because there's no fucking reason. So a 7-man crew. It is a decently sized ship for 47.9 million. Now there's other ships that we can talk about in between. In fact, let's just scroll through this. Let's dial back a little bit. Let's talk about the Aegis Eclipse and the Aegis Redeemer. No, Retaliator.
Okay.
Both of them. Now, I've never bought an Italian game.
Mhm.
In case you can't tell, I have not gotten that much money. So I don't know if it comes with modules. I'm pretty sure it doesn't come with any. And I don't know if you can buy
Mhm.
those modules in game or not either.
You can.
Okay,
Mhm.
good to know. But 7.9 million for the tally.
It's too cheap.
Eclipse also 7.9 million. Exact
Too
same
cheap.
prices actually.
They're both too cheap.
How much? Okay, how much do you think they should be?
I have to give you two different answers because I think they should not be the same price for one. The Eclipse specialty stealth bomber. It's a specialty ship. It should have specialty pricing. It should be like 15 mil.
That I don't disagree with. I mean, the Eclipse being a very expensive ship makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
It
And the
Can I-
Retaliator? Yep. Go ahead.
Can I interject one thing? So
Yeah.
since we're still on the Eclipse, 7.9 million. You can get the signature of the Eclipse, I believe, at 3 or sub 3 clicks. Your targeting on those torpedoes is, I believe, 40 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay, that's your maximum range. I believe your minimum is 5 kilometers. So
Yeah.
just to minimum target, you're still outside of sensor range. And that's, obviously after you've shut things down and you're basically a ghost.
Yeah.
Firebird. Firebird can lock inside, depending on your missile, anywhere between 900 to 1.2 kilometers, depending on type of missile. That's your minimum lock distance. Your signature, you can get the exact same as, in fact, I've done the calculations on it. Depending on what you turn off, you can get that thing down to 2.7 clicks.
Yeah, no, the Firebird should be at least $10 million.
Okay.
Mhm.
At least.
It
But they're
carries
also not
20
really comparable in my book.
Well, it carries
Valid.
24 size 3 missiles. 24.
That's cute.
It can sit outside of your radar range indefinitely. Size 3 missiles are far more deadly because of their maneuverability and their speed to anything that is medium-sized or smaller.
Exactly.
The Eclipse is extremely deadly to anything that is medium-sized or larger.
Mhm.
But they're the exact same thing. And they have
Eh,
such
They're
different
not
price
the exact
points.
same thing.
I
The
don't think
Firebird
they
comes in at
really-
5.8 million.
They couldn't be more different in my book.
I think the Firebird should be like close to the price of the Eclipse, but not because they're the same ship.
Okay,
I agree that
hold
the
on.
Firebird should
Kenshi?
be very expensive.
Kenshi, I appreciate your comment here on the stream. Thank you. But how long ago was that? Because I can't remember the last time I've seen you grind out an 890 jump.
I remember
I
when
was
he
doing-
grinded out that 890 jump. That was
Yeah, I remember
before
that.
the
But that
flight
was
model change.
pre-wipe before
was
a
like
lot of these
319.
changes.
It was
Yep.
before the flight model change. It was before master modes.
Which-
I remember when
Which
he
means the
grinded out that
890
design.
was cheaper. I believe it was 32 million at that point.
Yes, and not
It's
64.
like 30, 38, I think. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
like
So-
less than 40 mil.
890 jump right now is
It's
65.3 million. It doubled in price.
5. Jesus.
Should be more expensive.
Totally could be.
No, it totally
I-
should be.
The size of the ship and the fact that it's considered luxury. I mean, if you really want to go by luxury standards and the premium price that everything runs, then that ship should be over 100 million.
I agree. I think it should be maybe even over 200 million.
Mm-hmm. Now that begs the question, though. Bringing that up, what about the Polaris? Polaris, obviously, we don't know the price of the game yet. What should it be priced at?
75 million.
75 million.
I think that's
a
too low.
strong figure.
I think that's too low. I think first off, it is capital class. It has PDCs. It has a hangar bay. It has internal cargo of up to 500 SCU. It has 27 size 10 torpedoes. It has 16 size 3 torpedoes plus another 12 size 2, not torpedoes, I'm sorry, missiles, plus another size 2, 12 size 2 missiles on the remote turret, and multiple remote turrets or multiple man turrets around the ship. So I would say that ship should be in the realm. By the way, its hull HP is immense. So I'm going to put it somewhere in the range of 150 to 200 million.
That's way too expensive for the Polaris. You have to consider that the Polaris is the weakest of all the capital class ships.
Yeah.
Like
I know.
literally armor wise, it is the weakest. It's
But
kind
it's
of
the-
like the Fury,
But-
not meant to be expendable, but like if you're gonna lose a ship, I think you're gonna want to lose the Polaris before an Idris.
But right now, in the current state of the game, there are only 2 ships that are considered capital class, the 890 and the Polaris. One of them is meant for war, the other one is not. And I do believe that the military ship should come out on top in terms of cost. If you think that the 890 jump should be 100 million, then the Polaris should be that price or far more.
I said I thought it should be like 200 million. But I can't compare the 890 to other capital class ships because it's not a traditional capital class ship. It is a big yacht. It is
Yeah.
not like it's not the fucking aircraft carrier. You know, like
Right,
I'm
but
not
we've already
I'm not gonna price it the same way as I would any other capital class.
but already in the conversation before, we've already talked about luxury versus military.
Uh-huh.
And we've all agreed that military should have a higher cost.
I mean, yeah, in general, but there's always exceptions to rules. And I think an 890 being a capital class yacht should be an exception to a rule. It
I
has
mean-
more armor than the Polaris. It has way less guns, but it's not really meant to have guns. It has a swimming pool. It has a giant fucking swimming pool. It's got a
Does it-
spa. It's got a restaurant. It's got a pool table. It's got one medical bed, which I think needs to be readdressed. It's got passenger carrier bunks, right? Like you can transport NPCs with it. You can do passenger gameplay. You can do touring gameplay. You can sponsor exploration by carrying ships with you, just like the Polaris can. But the Polaris has a bigger hangar because it's meant to carry fighters, which are generally bigger than exploration ships, right? So like, I think the use cases are too different for them to be directly comparable. At least if you're looking at like pricing structure.
So
And going along with that, I want to tag on to something that goes with what Krindor said. The 890 jump is literally like you're buying a business.
Yeah.
When you buy a fucking Polaris, you're not buying a business. You're buying some like defenses.
You're buying a tool.
You're buying a tool.
What's the
Yes, a
cost?
tool.
What's the cost of one of our destroyers in the U.S. Navy? and
I have
compare
no
that
idea.
to a
Great
ship of
question.
similar size that is luxury, like a luxury
Billions.
liner of similar size. Which one's more expensive?
Probably the luxury liner. They go upwards of $1 billion now.
I mean, it's very true. I mean, there's this, and he's not wrong, because there is a guy I watch who is a real estate guy, but he also does like big, huge yachts, and they get up to like close to $1 billion. We're talking like $900 million yachts that are just
Right.
huge, and like literally, they're a business. It is
So
a business that these people are running off of.
So the Arkley Burke class destroyer that we currently have runs about 2.5 billion per hull.
Mhm. I get what you mean, but I still have.
But
decided
is there a
to ignore
yacht that matches the size of that ship?
That's a good point. I don't think
So
that's a yacht.
I'm going to counter that by saying, what's the biggest yacht in the world? And
But-
how big is that compared to the carrier?
But the biggest yacht would be bigger than the Arkley Burke class.
Why would it be?
Have you seen some of the cruise liners? Those things are huge. They're bigger than all of
That's
some
not
of
a
our
yacht.
battleships.
That's not a yacht. That's a completely different class of ship.
True.
But we're talking capital class ships.
So
Okay, then by that logic, should the hull E be more expensive than a Bengal?
What are we talking
Okay.
for size?
So the size I'm seeing for the largest yacht is 180.6 meters long.
You have a 165 foot costing $600 million. Not quite to a single $1 billion. So I'd still say that a military ship should cost more than a luxury liner.
I'll put it to you
Okay,
this way:
a
the
military
largest-
ship, sure, but the Polaris, I don't think so.
The largest battleships ever built were the Yamato and the Musashi by the Japanese Navy. They were 863 feet long, which equivalates to about 263 meters. The biggest yacht being 180 meters. We've never had a yacht as big as our biggest battleships. So that does still leave the air open to, if we did have a yacht that size, it could be that price or more.
But that's why I picked the Arleigh Burke, because it's a more believable size,
Except
comparable
it's
size.
like-
we're talking about
it's-
big.
It's not a good comparison for the 890 and Polaris, though, because the 890, I'm pretty sure, is bigger than the Polaris, right?
You have a warship with more hull HP. You have a warship with more guns, more systems, higher shields. You have more storage capacity. You have the ability to also carry with you up to, depending on how you fit them, 2 fighter class ships. You have size 10 torpedoes, 27 of them, 28 size 10 torpedoes. I mean, just the torpedoes alone are a small fraction of the cost of that ship.
I
I mean-
I still think that when it comes to it, I think a luxury vessel like that would probably be more expensive, and only because of, like I said earlier, you're buying a business. You're buying an outright business. Those
Mhm.
battleships in the real world are not businesses. They're not making money off of using their armaments. They are just defending. Whereas if you use the restaurant on board your luxury yacht, that will then bring back in money that could pay for the vessel itself, therefore making it worth way much more.
Oh, it also has a hot tub. I forgot to mention that earlier.
Yes.
It
That
has a
changes everything.
functional
I'm so sorry.
chessboard.
I'm so sorry. The hot tub. I completely forgot about that. That's
It has a
that's the turning
functional-
point.
Functional chessboard.
Ah,
It's
jeez,
got a little waiting room next to the hangar that does fucking nothing.
Can you say checkmate?
Yeah, gotcha.
I think
I-
this is
Checkmate,
I think this is
atheists.
the point where we're gonna have to respectfully disagree with one another, because I I'm strongly in belief that the Polaris should be far more expensive.
Now, on real money, those two ships, if you buy them with real money, they are. I mean, the Polaris is a more expensive real money ship than the 890.
No.
I think by like $25, but
Uh-uh.
yeah, because the Polaris is 975 and the 890 jumps like 900. Right? Or am I
No.
wrong? I
I
thought.
think you have it the other way around.
Is it?
The 890 War Bond is $890.
Well, hold on, we can look it up right here. It's on this website. So
Yeah.
Well, it's okay.
the Polaris is 975 and the 890 is 950. 25
So
bucks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, $25 difference.
Okay.
Which, like, in that logic, like in that case, if they're
So-
gonna go like that, the 890 should be cheaper than a Polaris. If you go
So
by
here's-
what their real money
Here's
is.
what I will say. Even though I believe that the Polaris should be over $100 million, I believe it'll come into the game somewhere in the 75 million UEC credit range. Sorry,
So you
UEC
agree
range.
with me?
I
Well,
don't
no,
think-
because the
I said
890
75 million earlier.
the
No, but
the
that's what he thinks
890
they'll
is
price it at. He doesn't
65
want it.
million. At present
think-
pricing, the 890 is 65 million, and I believe the Polaris should come in above that. And if it does, based on the real dollar value compared to the UEC value, that would put the Polaris at somewhere 75 to 80 million.
However, you think it should be over 100 million.
I do think both of them should be over 100 million.
Okay,
Yes.
I just want to make sure. Okay. I don't think they'll bring it in under 100 or over 100 million. I think the Polaris will be cheaper than 100 mil, but I
I'm
still
honest-
agree. I think it should be more than.
I'm
And the
honestly
890 as
thinking
well.
that they I'm thinking they're not going to put anything over 100 million unless we're talking something larger than both the Idris and the Polaris.
I think a capital class ship should be 100 million minimum. I think that should be like a price point. Like, just, like if it's a capital class ship, 100 million. Like just so that way people don't fly them around by themselves unless they really just grind
So-
it out $100 million.
So do you think the Pioneer should be 100 million?
What does the Pioneer do?
I
'Cause don't
can
know.
guarantee you that
That's my only
whenever the
problem. I don't know what it does.
Base
the
building.
the Pioneer
that's-
is literally the capital class construction vessel that literally is probably one of the most valuable ships in the entire game right
Then
now,
it should
as
be
they
the
have.
almost the most expensive. Again, business. You're buying a business. It is not just a tool. That is a business.
So
So it should
the
be like 500 million.
See, the
So-
way I see it, you use it to make the business. So I see it as a tool.
I honestly think that they shouldn't seed any capital class when building comes in. I don't think any capital class should be seeded by NPCs. I think we should be the ones building them and putting the cost on them.
See, I think of it as a tool and a business. Like you would build your own business, but once you're done, like, are you just gonna let it sit there? Or are you gonna go like,
No, I'm
Use
gonna
it to
rent
make
it
money
out to
for
someone else,
So
dude.
then
when
it's a
I
business.
when my power washing business, right? Like when I make enough money to do something else and invest in a different business, I'll probably sell or rent out the power washer. Like I'm not gonna fuck it. I'm not gonna fuck with it. Same with like if I already have a self-sustaining business that I've created with the Pioneer, what the fuck do I need it for? I'll rent it out to someone else.
but that's the business. Like that's why the Pioneer to me is a business because now you're using it to make money. Like Enterprise will pick you up. They rent cars. That is a business. Like it's a tool until you're done with it, and then now it's a business, which is why I think it should be the most expensive capital ship.
But it's a tool for somebody else that's renting it.
Yeah, but you renting it out is you using it as a business. No,
I'm renting a
I would-
tool out though. Like
yeah, but you are establishing that you are a business renting a tool.
yes. So therefore, the item that I'm renting, the Pioneer, if I'm renting a tool, then that would mean the Pioneer is a tool.
yeah, but when you're that's fine. Like I
Well,
think
your-
we're getting
your
into semantics
business-
here too, though.
Your
'Cause to
your
you, when you
business
rent it out-
is your business is building and owning Pioneers. Your business is renting those Pioneers out. And even though those Pioneers, or even though your business is renting them, yes, it's a tool. You're renting a
So-
tool out for someone to use, but your business is renting ships.
And then in that case, in the 890 jump, the 890 is not a business. Then the 890 is only a tool because itself is the tool to run your business. Your business is luxury, transport, and accommodation.
Except the 890 doesn't make other things. See, I would agree with
True,
you if the
true,
890
yeah.
wasn't the end point. The 890 is the end point. Like you get it to start the business of like touring, right?
That's a good
But like
point. Yeah.
the Pioneer, you get to start any business. You make the buildings that your business is comprised of with it. So the Pioneer is not the end point. The Pioneer is the tool to get to the end point.
Would you agree that it should be one of the most expensive, or what? How would you price it with that like mindset?
8,000 billion. I don't know. Like fucking, it shouldn't
it-
be available.
Okay, fair. So you,
Well, that goes along.
extremely
That goes along
valuable
with my
ship.
statement,
Okay.
right? So my statement was, I believe that anything capital class shouldn't be seeded by an NPC. I think that we should have to build them and sell them ourselves.
I disagree. I don't think it should be a generalized thing like that. I think it should be case by case. So, like, if you take a Polaris or an Idris or like a Javelin, right? Those are made en masse for the Navy, and then they're eventually retired to the civilian market, right? Therefore, seeded by NPCs. The Pioneer, though, is made by Consolidated Outlands, who make 5 ships. They make like the fucking Mustang. They make the what's it called? The thing, the truck, the thing with the pickup in the back, the Nomad, and then they make the Pioneer, right? So if the company is mass producing the Mustangs and the Nomads, then the Pioneer, I don't think they're mass producing. So I don't think that they would be seeding markets with it. I think they would be selling it to select clientele, much like a high-end business like Consolidated Outlands very much presents themselves to be, would only sell it to businesses, and it wouldn't be on a civilian market. Therefore, it shouldn't be seeded by NPCs. Same goes with like the 890 jump. I don't think that should be seeded unless like somebody just sells it, right? Like you could make an argument that an 890 could be sold used, and that's how it would be seeded. But like, I think it should be case by case.
So we'll leave that hanging there. But let's go to something that is in the market, and of larger scale. So this is a large classification of ship, requires a large hangar. This is the Crusader C2 Hercules, C2 A2 M2. Okay, so this one has a significantly bigger gap between models. We come in at the base with the C2 Hercules of 18.9 million. Before we go any further, do we think that's appropriate? Based on other ships, I would say, I mean, think about it. The Vanguard are 10 million. 10 to 11 million.
Yeah.
Is 18.9 million the good price for the C2?
No, I don't think
You've gone
so. I
from a
think it's way
small,
too
heavy
cheap.
fighter to a large cargo ship.
Think about like if you are moving commodities with it, like you would be, because it's the one thing it's for. How many runs would it take to pay that off? Probably like 4 or 5, depending on the commodity you're trading, right?
I'd
feel
say
like
higher.
is higher, more runs.
Oh yeah, I would say at minimum 10.
I disagree. Okay, like if you're, it depends again what you're peddling. Like I have an undisclosed amount of slam, okay? It sells for an undisclosed amount of money. If I were to sell a C2's worth of it, I would make more money than the C2 is worth just on that one sale, assuming I was able to sell it all.
Well, you still have, I was going to say, you still have a few more factors. First off, did you buy it or did you commandeer it? And secondly,
Does not matter.
are you able to sell it all in one go? Because your time is also money. So, I mean, the more time you have to wait selling something, the less you're making per hour.
But I don't think per hour is a metric that really matters here. We're looking to pay off a ship. That's
The
an
metric
absolute.
that was
I'm
stated in
looking to
this
pay-
hypothetical was per run. So that wouldn't, yeah. If you're looking at per run, that's different than per hour.
Even still, the per run, you still have a time period that you have to try and like earnings in this game are always per hour. You're not talking about per run. Your earnings are per hour.
No.
The only time that your earnings are per run is whenever you go to location, buy enough to fill up your whole ship, take it to another location, and sell the entire lot in one go.
That was the
that's a
exact
per run.
situation that I
Well,
described, man.
That's
That
only
is literally
that's only in
exactly what I said.
situations. That's only in situations where the supply allows it. Very few
I don't know
after
what
they've
to
changed the
say to
in-game
that.
market. After they've changed the in-game market, very few places haven't have enough supply to first off fill that entire thing.
Right.
And
Assuming
secondly,
you're able to sell it, as I said, I don't know how to respond to what you're
But
saying.
like, let's
'Cause
go.
you're
Let's
like,
stick into the
you're taking
hypothetical of
exactly what I
runs.
said and just flipping it. So like, I don't know what to say.
Well, yeah, well, and you're getting into the nitty gritty of how, and not just the base hypothetical of let's say it's working fine. In 4 runs, could you pay off the Hercules? Maybe, maybe not. Leave out the differences
okay,
of the game
but if it
stability.
takes you 5 days to sell the product, you're not going to pay that off in a working week.
But we weren't talking about a working
Who
week. We talked about
cares?
runs. We were
That's
talking
not
about
the
runs.
point.
But that's a
first
whole
thing-
different metric that you're not considering.
It's the God.
I don't think
You're
that
just
metric
I'm finding it very difficult to speak with you because you're taking what I'm saying and just like completely changing it and like just not engaging with what I'm saying.
Okay, let me put it this way. So, when you're earning money in the game, do you want to earn money fast or slow?
I don't care.
You don't care. Are you saying
I
that?
care about making money.
Are you
I
saying
don't care
that
if it's
because
fast
you're
or slow.
well, and the idea is like what I think. Why are you measuring it per hour? Like, why
because
is that the measurement?
every player in this game measures their earnings on time.
No, they don't.
So
I
what?
don't.
I do.
I don't.
I
think
don't
Crindle
either.
does.
There
Then
there are
okay,
lots of
every
people that do.
player- Okay, lots of people, but
That's
not every
great
player.
for them. That's not what we're talking about.
But and the only reason is because like I get Krindor's frustration because you
Show
did mention
show me.
hold on. You did
Let him-
mention the first way that you kind of displayed it was could you make it in 4 runs? Could you in 4 runs? So your unit of measurement was the amount of runs you're doing with it. You didn't first bring it up in the amount of time.
Well, I
it
didn't
would
bring
take,
that
the
up
amount of days.
anyways.
Well, okay,
I just went along with
first
what he
said
said.
I brought it up
Okay.
in run.
That's fine. And so the first person that brought up a unit of measurement was Krindor using the unit of measurement of runs. So that's where that conversation started. And we started with runs. The frustration comes out of because now you've changed it into a different unit of measurement that we're not using. We're using the unit of measurement of runs.
Okay.
And if you want to look at it in a unit of measurement of time, that is a different conversation and it's valid.
It's like
But
I'm
it's different.
saying like we need to harvest 1,000 apples, right? And like it doesn't matter how fast we get them. We just in a period, right, where we're harvesting apples, we need to meet the mark of 1,000 apples. You come along and say if we're not hitting 100 apples an hour, we're failing. When that's not at all what the
Yeah.
metric is.
Yeah, it wasn't as much of a time sensitive thing as just like how many uses of the ship would it take to pay off the ship, you know?
Right.
And
So-
like and in the sense of the game, some people might get on and only use that ship for 30 minutes to do a run, and then they get on a couple days later, and
Majority
so their
player
time
base.
frame isn't hours, it's or days. It's just that person would use it runs. They'd be like, yeah, over the course of a week, I did about 4 runs with my Hercules. And I made
So let me
$500.
put it out this way then. There are thousands upon thousands of videos out there, all talking about earning money in this game. Show me videos, comparatively speaking, show me videos of per hour versus per run. How many videos are advertising per run? Because none of them are. I can guarantee you none of them are. You know why? Because people want to earn money fast.
That's such a I don't know how to respond to that.
don't-
That's
And so
like,
so YouTube videos are labeling their video titles to cater to draw in the views, and it's per hour. You can make 7 million per
I don't give
hour.
a fuck what the average person uses as their metric. It's not the metric I brought up in my example.
Yeah, I think that's just the biggest difference. It's fine if everybody uses that metric, but like in our hypothetical, and in Krindor's hypothetical specifically, he's using the measurement of runs. So to change his unit of measurement just pretty much like ignores his hypothetical.
That's
So
what
you're
I'm saying.
gonna-
You're like completely
So you're
disregarding
gonna
what I'm saying.
so you're gonna ignore how much time it takes you to even fill up that thing, and you're gonna ignore how much time it takes to sell off that thing.
It's not ignoring, it's just not the point of topic right now. We're not going over that at this moment. We're going over runs.
But
If
that's
we want to
important.
move on into time, we could do that next. But to just to disregard his hypothetical and create a new one is where the frustration comes from. And I understand that, because the hypothetical I very clearly understood was just runs and how many runs can it take. And if you wanted to later look and break it down by hour, I feel like anybody would be fine to have that conversation. But it's just a matter of how that gets there. It's like running through one hypothetical and then now let's indulge in the next individual's hypothetical. You know,
If you have a ship that can move cargo enough to pay off the ship in a single run, that is a problem. That was the point I was making. That is possible with the amount of cargo the C2 can carry, depending on the commodity you're selling. If you're selling high value commodities in an ideal situation, you can pay it off in literally one sale. Okay, ignoring demand, assuming you can sell all of the cargo in one go, you can pay off that 15 million very quickly. That ship has earned itself back in one go. That's because of the amount of cargo it has. Okay, that's not to illustrate the realistic applications of the ship. Okay, that's to illustrate what it can do. It is possible theoretically to have a sale like that. There could be conditions that allow that. And so for that example, right, that is a problem for me, that it's only 15 million. It should be more expensive. It should be way more expensive.
It is.
How
It's
many cargo
18.9
is-
million.
how many cargo is there?
Oh my God. Okay. I'll
500?
talk to you guys another time.
Well, how many is the how many cargo is the Hercules?
696.
696. So going off of what he said, because like I understand what he means. Let's say you went and you took your Hercules and you got a shitload of maize, right? You found maize somewhere, right? And it's a very expensive commodity, but it's possible. So you find maize and you do 696 maize, and like what is the value of maize? Like maize is really expensive, like 80 grand or something. Let's say it's 80 grand. If you do 696 times that $80,000, that's $55 million. And the point Krendor is making is, with that being a possibility, not a super normal reality, but with that being a possibility, that with one commodity I can go out and do that in one run, that's what he has a problem with. And
But that's
I do
that's not the reality.
no, but and again, he didn't mention reality. He wasn't talking about reality.
I'm not going to entertain that kind of reality that he's trying to put forward, because it's not reality.
Yeah, but we've been doing a million hypotheticals in this podcast, so that is just now to him it would seem as though you are picking the hypotheticals you're willing to indulge in. Like we've done tons of hypotheticals. And that is, I feel like, a big part of this discussion. Like half of this discussion and throwing around money, we've done hypothetical figures. Like you gave out a hypothetical of what you think the Polaris might come out versus what you think it should come out at, and we've run scenarios in our heads. So I don't think there's anything wrong with entertaining a non-realistic scenario. Like
But
we're
we
entertaining that
also
right now
haven't
because this game isn't realistic.
but we also
The
haven't tread into the realm of cargo. We've been talking about ship
No,
systems. We've been talking about functionality.
of
We've been
course,
talking about, okay, you have to understand that our hypotheticals have been in line with the purpose of the ship. So the purpose of this ship is
100%.
cargo, and the purpose of cargo in the game, and the purpose of why people run cargo, right? People are looking to earn money, right? If you're running cargo, you're looking to earn money, and you're looking to earn money fast. Everyone who runs cargo is looking to earn money fast, or they wouldn't be running cargo. Well, some of them would, because they're just weird like that. This ship, okay, 696 SCU, coming in at 18.9 million flat.
I think it's too low.
You have a variety of things that there are a variety of ways you can fill it up. Stompy's way, Vaughn missions.
Mhm.
Okay, he goes and fills it with eggs, and even then, when he sells, it's not full,
No.
Nope, never full enough.
right? So while he's earning millions of dollars, he's taking on the risk of the Vaughn missions. He's taking on the risk of getting, caught going from point A to point B. He's got crime stat. He can't go to regular stations. He's selling a commodity that, well, it has a decent demand, it doesn't have a high demand, right? So he can't always sell it in one go. He has to wait sometimes a day or two before he gets back on and sells the rest. You have time. Time is a factor in all of this.
Hmm.
So hypothetically speaking, you still have to factor in time
I'm not
and
saying you
supply
don't.
and
I'm not
supply.
saying yeah, I'm not saying you don't have to factor in time. I'm not saying it's an irrelevant factor by any means. I understand that people do that, you know, but there are plenty of other ways that like people are going to look at the value of a ship, and like plenty of people will look at the value of a ship of like, well, how many runs do I need to pay it off? That's how they look at the rock. How many times do I need to use the rock to pay it off? You know, like that's when I first got into the game and I was like looking and how do you make money in this game? The first thing that I saw suggested was go rent a rock and in one load you will pay off your rental and you can use that rock to make money for your first ship. And it's like, and it didn't specify anything about time. It just said like it was talking about runs. It's like I remember it was like at that time, this was years ago, but it was like if you could do 5 runs with a rock, you would be able to afford a cutlass. And and pay off your rock. It was something like that
Well,
number. But he was talking about how
so
many times
here's
you use it and not a price per hour. And I
so
never really
so I'm
thought.
gonna I'm gonna put a pause on that for just a sec because
Mhm.
they can do the per run on the rock. You know why? Because supply allows it.
Yeah, and again, uh, this is in it in the hypothetical. It's the intent is that you can get it all and sell it, and supply will be fine. Supply won't be the issue. You know that was, and of course, realistically, that's not the case. But it's just the point made that like even if I couldn't like let's say that we indulge in that supply isn't always going to that reality, which is how it is. Even if I still get that C2 full of maize, yeah, maybe I don't have to sell it. I can't sell it all at once, but I'm gonna sell it all. And I've made 5 times the amount of my ship filling it one time. Maybe I can't do it in one day.
But
Sure.
that's taken
But
you a
I've still
month
made
to do.
that doesn't matter. The whole point of what Krindor was
But
saying was it is doesn't seem right that in one haul, no matter how time, no matter how much time, but in a small amount of use of the ship, you've already paid it off.
all
That
right, so let's put something in parallel with it. Salvaging.
hmm
You're hauling versus salvaging. So you have one person salvaging, you have one person hauling.
Yep.
Who's going to make more money in the same amount of time?
It depends. It depends. Again, there's factors. Like what are you hauling? What ship are you using? Are we using a Hercules? Are we hauling legal goods? Are we hauling
Okay,
illegal goods?
Hercules versus a reclaimer.
And I'm doing hauling missions, or I'm going out and am I
However you want to earn money. Who's going to earn money by the end of the play session? Who's going to earn more money by the end of the play session?
by the end of the play session? As it stands right now, probably the salvage,
Okay?
Yeah.
Why?
just because you can sell RMC easily and it's legal. You
Supply.
don't have to
Okay.
like look for specific places. You don't have to
Okay.
split up your
So
sell locations.
so it's supply.
Yeah.
Supply is the thing that's right. So you don't have to wait to sell your stuff. You can get it
Now, how many
right then.
times? I'll flip it. How many times do you have to use your reclaimer? How many times do you have to use your reclaimer to make $55 million?
Why were why are you earning $55 million? What's the metric?
Because that's how much one full Hercules of maize can net you. It's $55 million. So how many times? And that, I only have to be in my ship one time. I go to a location, I find 696 SCU of maize. I put it in my ship. I take it to my freight elevator, and I store it
Okay,
in my freight elevator.
but but the reality
That
of
pays
that
off
is
my ship.
you would never find that much maize in one spot ever.
No, not in one spot, but like if I stayed in my ship and I was in my ship looking around for maize until I filled it up, I'm in my ship one time and I fill it up with one time of one thing. I mean, there have been times where I've seen over 200 maize in a ship. So
Okay,
you can get a third of that real quick.
but that's a diamond in the rough, right?
Oh, but it's a possibility.
Of course it's a possibility.
So
It's a
that's what I'm
very
saying.
rare possibility, and that's based on chance.
Of course.
Your metric of time getting up to that one point where you actually win the lottery on that, like how long did you take to get to that point?
Okay, well, why don't we use like something that's a little more reasonable? You could find 696 slam within an hour. 100%, right? We see it all over the time. You see fucking stems all the time. You see like you go to anywhere like 323 anywhere in Crusader, you would find a fucking ship with fucking drugs on it. It's just normal, very casual. So if you did slam at, I don't know how much slam sells for. Let's call it
You're looking at
10 grand.
13,000 on
13.
SCU.
Great. That is 9 million. So that is a little more realistic, but in that, and he did say 4 runs. So that all you would need is 2, and you have more than what the Herc costs. You need 2 full loads of slam, and you can pay off the Hercules.
Sure.
How many
But
full loads? How many
but
full
how
loads
long
of
have both Krendor and
RMC?
I been but how long have Krendor and I both been spending time trying to sell off all that slam? Cuz I been at least a week for me.
Again, I'm not counting time. I'm counting use of ship. Not counting time right now. I'm counting use of ship.
But
Like
time is
how
still
many
a
it
factor.
took. I had it not. It is, but not in this. Not in this one. In this, it's just it took 2 times for me to fill up my cargo hold, and I paid off my whole Hercules.
Okay,
Can the reclaimer
congratulations.
fill up? Can the reclaimer fill its cargo hold up 2 times and pay itself off?
I don't know that math off the top of my head.
I don't either. I'm because what RMC? How many cargo does the reclaimer have? 4 something?
was
420.
420.
420.
Hey,
And then nice. And then RMC goes for 9 grand
9 grand now, yeah.
times 9. Oh, whoops. That's 420 times. So in 2 runs, you would have made about 3.7 times 2. So 7.2. So you make about 7.2 million with 2 full loads of RMC. And I mean, you could even do slam if you just want to go run slam, but the use case of the reclaimer is salvaging. So you wouldn't make as much money filling your ship up twice as you
Well,
would in the Hercules.
to be fair, if the purpose of salvaging is to salvage everything, so stripping,
Mhm.
crunching, and collecting the weapons and cargo off the ship, if someone were to take the time to do that, which no one does because I mean they take the valuable cargo and they leave the rest and they don't even touch the weapons because it's just not worth the time,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
again, time's playing a factor, but you're looking at, you said in 2 runs 7 million, and
Yeah.
let's
It's
say
3.7 per run.
let 3.7 per run. So again,
Yeah, for a full cargo of RMC.
and let's say that you also take the same mission you did to try and get the slam and the eggs.
But see, you don't have to pay for the mission to do slam. You can, but you don't have to. You don't have to spend any money there.
I mean, you don't have to. Okay, great.
I'm just that's how it is. You don't have to spend that money. I don't have to put in any
But
money there.
even still, even with a 200 buy-in on a contract, or even a 15,000 or whatever they're charging for some of those missions,
Hmm.
you're still going to be earning, if you're talking about cargo and salvage, you're going to be earning far more than you would with just a cargo ship in the same amount of time, if not more, or I
I
mean less.
again, if we're like in time, if in an hour, if in a play session, a 4-hour play session, a reclaimer will make more than a Hercules. I will side with that. Can a Hercules fill itself up quicker and make more money that way? Yes. If if you're limited on time, then sure, the salvager wins outright because of time. But if you're not looking at time and you're looking at use of ship runs and just runs, because like again, time is subjective to each individual. We have the time to sit and play a long sesh. Plenty of weekend gamers are going to get on for like 2 hours, and their first hour is trying to get set up, and then they have a hour. So they do like a run, and they don't think of it in a hour. They're like, I did a run on Friday night when I got off, and then I did a run on Sunday afternoon, and I made about $4 million to run. Some people are going to think of it like hour to hour, but those people who are thinking of it hour to hour are gamers who are gaming nonstop, and they're like hour to hour to hour to hour to playing. As soon as you're not playing more than 2 hours, you don't think of it that way. You don't think of price per hour because you don't have a bunch of hours you're on. So to only ever think about it in the amount of time, I think disregards that half of the population doesn't think about
I would disagree
'Cause, like,
because
I'm
I
not a
mean some
hauler.
people only
Combat
have an hour to play, and if I can
But
guarantee I'm earning 4 million an hour, then that's great.
see, but that's the other thing too, is, like, that's also the only people that are, like, trying to make money like that. When you go to combat and you go like, I'm not like, anybody in combat is not pricing at their money making. It's not
I'm
how you
not
think about it. Only
counting how many
cargo
kills
haulers.
you want to get and then calling it a night. We just fucking
You're
we
just
just want
going
kills until
cargo
we get
haulers and
yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Stompy.
For doing combat stuff, it doesn't matter. We don't have a set limit. So
Yeah.
it's like like 10 kills, 20 kills. We just want to kill, kill, kill until we get bored because that's what we came to play this game and do basically. And if it goes
Yeah.
longer, cool. If we hit a rough spot and we can cut it short, so be it. But like, we don't really have much of a schedule.
See, and that's why I think the industrial people, maybe the hardcore industrial people, probably price their shit out hour to hour. But if industry isn't your only focus, then you're not looking at the game that way. Like, I don't look at the game as an hour to hour money making. And when I go out and I'm like, I need to make some money, I don't think of it as like, how am I going to make the most money in the next few hours? I think of it as like, what's going to be the most fun way for me to make money? What could be a good way to make a lot of money fast? I think of it like that. I don't think of like, okay, I need to make a lot of money. I'm going to go do this because it nets me X per hour. Because that's not what I'm not playing the game for one to make money, and for two, I'm not playing the game in the style of making money fast. I've chosen the path that doesn't make as much money as fast.
Even
Therefore,
when I was
I don't
doing like
account
Weevil
that.
leg runs in the flight model before this, I've been doing Weevil leg runs in a C2 and stacking boxes in between gaps, basically, right? And personally, you can say I was a little crazy, but I wouldn't stop until I filled that thing up and made 100 million a sell.
That's true. He
Like,
would.
and
He
that was
would.
just for shits and giggles. And then I went to test how much it'd be for maize, how much it'd be for Weevil's eggs. We're actually mixed first. And then once I found the sweet spot for Weevil's eggs and they weren't in demand, boy, was that making some money.
But
Right.
you know,
Like,
So-
I
so
price it hour to hour,
Stompy-
though. I just means
Stompy,
I
let me
can't
say
until it's tired
this.
to die.
If the demand for Weevil's eggs was so little that again you were talking about hypothetical, so I'm gonna throw one back at you.
Yeah.
If the demand for Weevil's eggs was 10 SCU an hour, would you spend the time to sell all that?
Fuck no.
Exactly. So the price of Weevil's eggs doesn't fucking matter.
I would go to a different commodity, a different drug, of course.
Right? You would go to the next thing that earns you the most money in the quickest amount of time.
see, here's
Right?
the
I
other
mean,
thing though, is like
even
when
still.
Stompy was running those Weevil egg runs, he never once referenced how much money per hour it made him. All he
Yeah.
talked about was, yeah, I filled the C2 full of this and I made X money. I filled the Connie full of this and I made X money. He didn't say it took me 5 days, it took me 30 hours. All he said was a full Connie, I made X money. So he wasn't thinking his time like he is right. He wouldn't be selling the Weevil eggs if the commodity wasn't bought that often. However, his unit of measurement in that was not how much money he was making per hour. His unit of measurement was how much does this entire thing filled to the brim net me? That goes back to the original conversation of sure, some people will measure their money making in per hour, and there's nothing wrong with it. I respect the fuck out of that hustle. However, to say that all players do it and to just say that it has to matter every time, it is not true because it doesn't matter if somebody like if Stompy doesn't think how much he makes per hour matters, then it doesn't matter because he is a player in the game and that is how he chooses to measure his money making. And it is okay for a hauler to do it because that's all they're doing. All they're doing is going back and forth and making money. Same with salvage. All they're doing is money. As soon as you jump out of that just only about money, like you can't think about it per hour because of course you're not going to make the most. Like the only reason you think like that is if all you give a fuck about is making money. Again, nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But that would be the
If you're
only
trying to go for
reason you
bigger
would-
shit, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that'd be a reason why you want to calculate that because you want to
Like-
know how quickly can you get to your goal. It's setting small goals to get to your goal. I get that.
Like
But, like,
Kinshi
even
said
still.
earlier, he grinded out within a week for an 890. He did do that. He grinded the
I didn't
32
believe
mil in
him
a week.
when he was
Like,
doing it. Yeah, he was just like killing it, dude.
And his priority was money. But like if he was like, I want to grind out an 890 jump and I want to do it as fast as I can, and then he just started doing bunker missions, well, of course he's not gonna make it as fast as possible. Because yeah. But like if that's what you want to do and you're trying to make money, like I'm not gonna go make myself miserable salvaging. I don't like salvaging. Yeah, I want $5 million to buy a couple ships, but I'd rather like I'd rather enjoy the game until I can afford it, as opposed to just like do something I don't want to do because price per hour dictates I'll get that money quickly. You know? And I think that's just a big thing is like not everybody's gonna think about it as in the fastest as quick as possible. So some people
Well,
will like
and
look
the
into it.
economy team is working on adjusting missions so that way missions have higher payouts for the combat focused peoples, and honestly they should be,
Mhm.
because I mean, fuck, look at Grief or Net, right? They absolutely hate doing what they call Bob shit. They hate it.
Yes.
Um, and so if they can have a series of missions where with high enough reputation, they can earn the money they need to keep doing what they do while still staying somewhat in the same vein of what they normally do, then that's the path they're going to take. So
Mhm.
I get that part. But when you're looking at hauling, it's a different beast.
No, and I agree, but I just at the beginning of it all, like the money making potential, like a Hercules can make like I said, like it can make $9 million with one full thing. Do you
Yes, but
sell that
okay.
immediately? No.
So
But
yes, the
it can.
value is if you took the most expensive item in the game and you filled that in ship entirely up, then yes, you could literally have sitting inside your ship about 2/3 of another ship. But you have to put that with an asterisk because you're never going to be able to offload that fast enough to make a difference.
I, and you know, and that gets into you could if you had the resources. Like the one thing too is like the demand. There's only a handful of commodities that sell at one place. A lot of commodities have multiple locations. So if you really were like looking to get it all sold, you could get it all sold. You don't have to go to one place that has one that has one inventory and just wait there. You can go sell at that place, take your ship to the next place, take your ship to the next place, and you can get your money as soon as you want it. It's just a matter of going and spending, like you said,
but
the
but
time
not always
to
true.
do it.
Remember how we were talking about that video, and I won't talk about exactly what that video is or what it pertained to, but that
Mhm.
video when it came out, all of a sudden we couldn't sell anything. It was we had thousands, maybe even 100,000 players. We'll just be generous and say that they were all selling, right?
Mhm.
And when you have 500, 200 to 500 units of a particular product going through even the multitudes of different places you can sell, both in Stanton and Pyro, you're first off the highest cost of the product is actually going to come down because their new system they have. Secondly, it's going to always have a extremely high amount of product, which means they're not going to be accepting very much in their allotted amount of time that they refresh. And when you do, you're competing with those same players who have stacked up cargo, trying to beat them to the sell button.
Yeah.
Because literally, the moment you hit that server tick, if you don't sell in the first minute or two, it's sold out.
But do we think that's just going to be the reality forever, though? Like, do you really think we're going to live in a reality where like the highest price commodity just is so hard to sell, or do you think they're going to fix that to where it's easier to sell things? Because if they fix it, then that's not a problem anymore.
Like a faster tick rate?
Yeah,
Well,
like well, okay, if
the
they look at this and they see, okay, this commodity selling at X, are they going to be like, great, this is what we wanted. We
that's
wanted
a
players not
complicated
to be able
answer.
to sell ever.
Yeah, well,
Like
that's a
that's not what they
complicated
want.
answer
Yeah,
because
I
well
don't think
no,
so.
they wouldn't. Not always.
Mhm.
Depends on the product, first off. Secondly, you have to look at both the faucet and the sink, right? So in a
Yeah.
game economy, they have to balance the amount of money coming into the game versus the amount of money leaving the game.
Yeah.
So that's what they're looking at, and that's honestly, I think that's why they've priced a lot of these ships as high as they have, because they're trying to sink money. Um, do I think that the high prices are worth it? No, I don't. For instance, the A2 Hercules is 44.2 million when the C2 Hercules is 18.9. So in that gap of cost, right? Yeah, the Hercules could come up, but the A2 could also come down. Sitting right in the middle at 29.4 million is the M2 Hercules, right? It has less
Yeah.
cargo. It has maybe I mean not maybe, it guaranteed has what, two more turrets? and
Yeah.
a higher percentage of resistance to the armor. That's it to justify the jump from 18.9 to 29.4. And you've actually lost value in the cargo itself. So they're trying to create a sink in the economy. And the problem is they just don't have enough gameplay revolving around money sink mechanics.
Mhm.
So they're doing what they can to put it in other mechanics that they already have, such as buying ships, which I think is stupid. And now the other mechanic is missiles. For some fuck-odd reason, they've overpriced missiles, and now you got to pay an arm and a leg, sometimes your entire fortune, just to restock. Sometimes you can't even afford it. I
Yeah,
have
but the missiles thing is not a factor of the economy. I'm 99% sure the only reason missiles are expensive is to maybe try to deter players from using this often to work on missile meta because missiles are so fucked up. I don't think that has to do with the economy. Honestly, maybe torpedoes uniquely on their own, that I could more understand, but as a whole, missiles being more expensive, a lot more to me just sounds like, yeah, we know missiles are fucked up. Here's something we're
well,
working.
we know
It's not
CIG has a very bad habit of knee-jerk reactions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So at first we had missiles with a cost like this, tiny, okay?
Yeah.
And now we've got missiles with a cost like this, fucking huge, when
Mhm.
really it should have been maybe here, right?
Well, it
It
needs to
just
be middle, and then they do that middle price with the change of missiles working properly. You know, chaffs and decoys working properly. If you can get all
well,
that working properly, missiles don't need to be crazy expensive because they're not always going to fucking hit.
well, here's the other thing. Fucking size 10 torpedoes are 500k a piece. They're 500k. There are ships you could buy for cheaper than a goddamn torpedo.
Well, see, and that's the thing though, is like that torpedo can destroy one whole ship.
Yes,
It
so can a size
makes
9
sense.
and so can a size 7, but that's besides the point. The point being that okay, first off, the only real place you're going to use a size 10, realistically speaking, and obviously there's outliers such as what I did with the fucking Star Lancer. I
Mhm.
shot a size 10 at a Star Lancer and it did exactly what I wanted it to do. Um, but you're going to use them for capitals. Size 10 are anti-capital torpedoes.
Yeah.
That's just the short and skinny of them. But when you're firing a size 10 and a PDS system takes it out, and you fire a size 10 and a PDS system takes it out, and you fire a size 10 and a PDS system takes it out, you're 1.5 million in the hole trying to kill this capital ship that you haven't even touched yet.
That I agree with. And I think the fact that those torpedoes and those missiles of that size are so expensive mixed with how strong the personal defense systems are, I think that is a bad mix. You could lower if you keep the PDs as strong as they are, you gotta lower the price of those torps. Like whatever size, doesn't matter. You have to because you're right. However, if they can fix the fucking PDs and not make them like that, I think that's too much. I don't think they should shoot down every fucking single projectile that comes at them. It's a little ridiculous.
Well, they
I
has
get
Don't
it,
forget that the PDs
but
and NPCs in general, and counting the PDCs as NPCs in part, they've also turned them up to like 11. Don't forget
yeah,
that. So
right.
they could tune them
Hammerhead,
differently, and they could miss more often than not in the future.
Hammerhead
well,
turrets
not just that.
also shoot out your missiles as well.
Yeah.
So you have 7 PDCs on average on a capital ship, right? And they have stated that a PDC can only target one object at a time. Now, obviously, those 7 are dispersed all around the hull of the ship. So, hypothetically speaking, you have to fire, or you have to get a screen in there of at least 3 to 4 other objects in order to get one object to hit. And that's not even a guarantee because you have to calculate the distance. So from the point that the PDCs activate, which is roughly 2 kilometers, to the hull of the ship, 2 kilometers is a huge distance, and they're so fucking accurate. Like you said, they're cranked up to 11. They're so accurate, and the damage is high enough that 1 to 2 rounds from the PDC takes out a size 1, size 2, size 3 missile, right?
Yep.
So size 4, maybe 2 shots, maybe 3. Either way, have you heard how fast those things fire?
No.
Right. So the only way to get a size 10 to land is to wait for them to drop, go into nav. And even
Well,
then, the
that or
torpedo's so
else
slow it can't keep up with the ship.
it's like you said, the only other thing is if they really like are trying to get people to use torpedoes smart. And if that's the case, you do it like you said. The only time you would use a torpedo is nav or when it's overwhelmed by other projectiles. If
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to get to do, then I can understand the idea of like, yeah, torpedoes are fucking expensive. Use them smart because they're expensive. I get that mindset behind that decision. I don't necessarily fully agree with how expensive it is, but I think like the torpedoes, like 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever size, when they get that size, they should be pretty fucking expensive because of
I don't
what they have the
disagree with that.
capability of.
I don't disagree with that. I think they should increase in price exponentially from, like, if you take the cost of a size 1 and you have a size 1 that is appropriately priced, then the next jump up, a size 2 and a size 3, should be priced accordingly to the size increase. And then once you get up to size 9 and size 10, by then you have a price that makes sense. But I don't think it should be 500,000 per projectile.
For the biggest torpedo, I don't know. A half a million for a fucking huge ass torpedo, like it doesn't sound that unrealistic to
For
me.
an A2 nuke, how much does that cost?
That's a good question.
Because if you
That's
have
actually a
the
really good question. How much is that?
carelessness to drop these like it's nobody's business,
Well, the
and I'm
reason
not
why we're
using back in the day
discounting,
as like an example. Wait, I'm not using like back in the day nukes before the flight model, before money became a problem, as an example. But you guys remember how freely like people just dropped A2s, like, oh, friendly A2 coming in at fucking Jump Town. There'd
Yeah.
be 3, 4 fucking strikes of the entire
So,
cartridge. Like
okay,
what, 4 nukes?
here you go. Here's how much a Colossus cost. $642,000 and 685 was 642 grand.
A nice dent in my wheel
Or
wallet.
685.
Goddamn.
Yeah. It's more expensive than a torpedo. It's a fucking nuke, and that makes sense.
Mhm.
And it makes sense that the torpedo would be cheaper than it by like almost 150 grand. But like, I understand that like the use of them and the fact that they're not that effective makes it rough for the price. But I also understand that like they are a powerful fucking object, and you should not be able to carelessly sling them
Mhm.
and not feel bad about it.
so
You
so
should be like, fuck, I just sent a torpedo. I hope it was worth it.
two things to answer. One, Krendor, he says in chat, why are we discounting fighters' ability to destroy point defense systems before
point.
firing a torp? And the reason why is because, have you tried shooting a point defense turret out on those things?
You can.
You know, I know you
And
can. I
pain
know
in the
you
ass, though, is the
can.
point.
Exactly. And their HP is high enough that it's going to take you fucking ages. You have to get through the shields first. Then you have to make sure your shots are pinpoint while it's moving around and you're moving around, and whittle out the HP of that turret. And it's not just that one. You have to make sure that all three on the top side, or whichever side you choose to go after, are taken out. And then
But
even then,
technically,
when you
that's
fire
supposed
your
to shoot,
torpedo,
right?
you have to make sure it stays on that side of the ship, because if they roll over and expose another PDC, torpedo's done. So you have to
Well,
take all 7 out.
well, and that's the thing though, is technically, eventually PDs aren't supposed to be hard to take out. Like a lot of things, like eventually with precision aiming, we're supposed to be able to target unique components and things and take them out.
I mean, Krendor,
Right?
yeah, we a competent fleet wouldn't simply fire a torpedo. We would just send out Rambo. So
But
that's
I mean, it's a good.
that's how we deal with capital ships.
It's a very valid point because like down the road, it's going to get to a point to where like yeah, your PDs are going to be taken out, and I think that when it gets stabilized and things work properly, $500,000 for a torpedo does not sound unreasonable. It sounds about right, especially for that size of torpedo.
I understand that's a thing, but get out there and try, please.
Try what?
Go find a Polaris, which there's plenty of them out there, and start fighting it as a fighter, and see how many point defense systems you take out.
I mean, you
And let
can.
me know.
You
I know
can.
you can, but
But
how
it's not
long?
as hard as you're making it out to be. It's like, will it take some time? Yes, it will take some time. but it is not as hard as you're making it out to be. You like, yeah, that they have individual HP that is stronger than what you would think they should be, but you can get out there and do it, especially if you do it with ballistic. If you do it with ballistics, you're going to fuck them up much quicker. Still, again, yeah, it takes time. And then especially a Polaris, like it takes a long fucking time.
Well, with
And
ballistics, you're gonna run out of ballistics before you get even a single turret down. You got to go restock, which costs money.
quite possibly. But I know you can take out PDs on Polarises, and they're the easiest one to take out because they're big and it's easy to move around that big target. But I wouldn't say so easy how hard that is. It is easier than you might think, and it'll probably be easier down the road.
If they made
So-
ballistics 90% piercing, people would opt for ballistics specifically
Yeah.
to go for
They're
turrets.
they're
and
already
be strategic in
80%
that way.
piercing. They're
Well, that's
already
what I'm
I'm
80%
aware,
saying.
but I said
piercing.
90% piercing.
And if you got the right ballistic, like if you use ballistic cannons, you might be able to take out all the PDs in one, ammo pool. It's possible. But again, going back to it, I don't think that the cost of torps and missiles is crazy outrageous. And I understand that, especially because like I didn't know until now, but a Colossus being over $500,000, yeah, all right. Torps about $500,000, all right. And then
Okay,
the missiles under it, it's a
I
missile, it's a projectile, it does a shitload of damage. Like they go through shields, they pierce
I also
shields.
still don't think the Colossus should be that much, but even if it is that much, you have to also understand that the Colossus is very specific use case. It can only be dropped in an atmosphere that has gravity. And secondly, it's non-targeting, therefore PDCs that you wouldn't have PDCs targeting an A2 bomb or even an A1 bomb for that matter, because
have
it's
ground
in
troops.
free fall, it's not targeted, and it's going to just fall.
No, but anything on the ground could. A ballista, it falls slow. If you've been on I've shot a fucking nuke.
No,
flying.
I don't disagree. Again, fighters are fully capable of targeting those things and take it out. In fact, I mean, size 9s have been taken out by Hammerhead pilots, and Hammerhead gunnery crew is more so than the pilot, obviously. But
Yeah.
so it's all possible. But by them having point defense turrets, and don't get me wrong, I like the concept of point defense turrets, but I also don't. It's a love-hate relationship because it takes it out of the player's hands. It is making up for the blind spots in capital ships that they deliberately put there, and they put it there for a reason, but then they're also going, oh, we're also going to cater to those that can't use the ship, and we're gonna let solo players be able to pilot a capital ship and have a certain level of protection. The only way to take it out is to just fight it with 4+ fighters, 4 minimum, or ram it.
See, I agree too. I think the PDs are in a really bad space,
Mhm.
and they kind of create a weird problem, especially in regards to the Polaris, because of how many there are. And right now, unfortunately, there's too many solo people just using it and using that crutch. And I I I think there should be some system in a ship like that, and it could not be like the most favorable take, but there should be something where like you have to have like a minimum crew for PDs to be allowed to boost. Like you have to have at least 2 gunners manned for your PDs to
I
work. Something like that. I don't know.
I would offer a
that's
different
best route,
solution.
but
I would offer a different solution. Give PDs their own capacitor on the power grid.
that's a good, yeah. That's a great one. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, engineering terminal man to operate PD. Yep.
That's another, yeah.
Okay,
You
but
gotta
even
keep up
yeah,
with your fuse
if you
replacements
made
so they have capacitors. 100%.
if you made PDCs something that is on its own power grid, and every time the PDCs fire, your capacitor loses HP, so you constantly have to be replacing capacitors, then I think that is a viable balance, and I would accept that.
That's what they need, something like that. And honestly, there's probably going to be something changed to PDs as time goes on. I have no doubt that I don't think they'll stay the exact same way as they are forever. I think there's going to
I've
be some changes, whether it's that
since we're
type of change or they all they could do too is they could just change how like accurate they are. Like you just tone down their accuracy, and it really is not as big of a deal. Like that simple of a change
I
can be
mean,
all.
yeah, I agree, but if you look at our modern day PDCs or PDS or whatever, those fucking things are
Yes, they are, but in the sense of a video game, like, and Stompy will understand this a lot. I'm sure you will too, but Stompy will understand this a lot from our Apex experience. As soon as a gun would go in the meta because it was really accurate or
Oh
really
god, don't even
powerful,
get me started.
all they had to do was change like two like increments of its accuracy. Boom, guns out of meta.
Yep.
Boom, gun doesn't matter. And this is that same idea because it's just a mechanic of a gun hitting a target. If the PDs are just a little less accurate, boom, not a huge problem. They're still a
Mhm.
nuisance, but not that big of a deal. Like all they have to do is change those numbers just a slight bit, and you're
They go
fine.
from fucking peppering you to flicking you.
Yeah,
Peppering you got to worry
Well,
about because it does damage over time, but flicking it's
here,
like, fuck it.
yeah.
here's the other thing. Like
Overdo
if
things.
you have PDCs, I think a PDC, I think every turret in the system needs its own capacitor. Like every man turret, right? So if I put cannons on let's just take the Polaris default mode, right? It has four Omniski cannons on the man turret top side. Okay. With default power configuration, when you start up the ship, it is 7 shots per cannon,
Mhm.
right? If they crank up the power on that capacitor or on the weapons grid, you get more shots. And if you take PDCs and split them out into their own power capacitor on the power grid, give them their own capacity, like give them their own fuses to operate off of, and give them a capacity to fire, then they will fire till they're dry and wait till they're fully recharged before they fire again.
Yeah.
So it's
I,
up to
I
you, the
don't
pilot or
agree.
the engineer, to figure out how much power goes into point defense and how much goes into manned turrets and how much goes into shields and how much goes into maneuverability.
See, and if they get that, then going back to the original thing, the price of those missiles isn't as big of a deal to people anymore because they'll hit more often, and there will still also be that sense of like, they're worth a damn. Like, you gotta.
Mhm.
I hope they hit. You need that balance, and these ideas are what they need to get to where that price point's reasonable.
So
Because, like, yeah, it sounds crazy,
right.
but if it works
The
right,
the only situation in which I would say that the price of those torpedoes are acceptable is when we can make our own. Because having a high price point on an NPC reloaded torpedo is a good thing, because that allows the player market to come in under that price and start selling those torpedoes.
Mhm.
And it's what you do in EVE Online too, right? So they seed an item at a high price, but people there are two things that happen. If it's something that's reproducible, then the item gets seeded at a higher cost, and then people are allowed to go and sell it at a different cost. If it is something that is not repeatable, people will go and buy it from the one location it's sold at and sell it other locations around the verse at a higher price because they took the time to go and get it and resell it.
Mhm.
So, depending on how they play it, the prices are going to be different with the player market, and that's honestly what I'm looking most forward to. And if you have a consumable like a torpedo priced at 500,000, then we can come onto the market and sell it for 450 or 400 or even 375, whatever it may be, earn a killing in profit, and we're undercutting the NPCs.
Yeah, and there could be a sense of that with all these ships, right? Like we don't know what blueprints look like. We don't know how much it'll cost for an org or a person to build their own Cutlass Black. We don't know how much that will cost for the resources stuff. It could be priced that way for down the road. Like maybe they have an idea of like what the blueprint will cost and what it'll cost to make your own Cutlass Black. So they're like, this is why we have the Cutlass Black at 3. Or this is why we're starting at 3, and like as time goes on, we're going to see if that's reasonable based off of our idea for blueprints. Because I mean, they must have some sense because they laid out so much in uh Citizen Con,
Yeah.
back in the fall. And they really talked about like that all that blueprint shit and making shit. So they could have an idea of like, all right, these prices are pointed for down the road when people are going to be making their ships. So like the Sentinel, it's like, yeah, it's pretty expensive, but players will be able to make it and sell it, like you just said, for a little bit smaller. So then it'll be less and less of people buying it from Lorville. And I don't know, but this is just guessing, but I could see how they have those ideas in place too. There's also the other side where it's like, yeah, CIG planning that far ahead, fuck off. So you never know.
Let's see. I'm just quickly scanning through the list here to see if there's maybe one other thing we can kind of poke at before we retire for the evening or for the week. I mean, otherwise, a lot of the other ships are pretty reasonably priced, in my personal opinion. I mean, the Terrapin is 5.4. You've got the Hurricane at 5.5. You have the Gladiator at 4.3. Again, a bomber, right?
How much is a Mantis? That's what I was thinking about earlier when we were talking about warfare and all that shit. Because that
Mantis
is
is
like
3.4 million.
that's way too fucking cheap though.
I don't disagree, but it also only has 2 size 2s to defend itself. The only things it has going for it is speed and QED. Otherwise, it has an extremely paper thin hull and 2 small guns.
That's size 3s, not 2s.
Is it 3s? Okay,
Yeah.
well then 3s.
Not
I
a
thought they
huge
were.
difference,
I thought.
No,
Oh, I know why I thought it was 2s, because last time I really put a lot of focus into it was before the. It was during the N-1 on the gimbals.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So.
But you're right. It is paper thin, and it's also like it's very unique and it's very strong for what it does. It is one of a kind. There is no other ship that can do what it does. No other ship pulls things out of quantum, and that alone is a very valuable asset. Like that alone is almost, in my head, that alone is almost a $10 million asset. The fact that you can just rip people out of their jumps. And nothing else can do that in this game.
I don't disagree. I think that ship is actually too cheap. I think it should go up at the very between 2 to 3 million at minimum.
It's claim time, and I'm sure most prices and ship sizes kind of correlate with their claim time, but that's the same thing. The Mantis is way too easygoing for how good it is. It needs to be more expensive. It needs to be longer to claim. All of these things, because it is.
So here's a ship I think is actually appropriately priced. The Argo SRV, the ship recovery vehicle, has no weapons on it. Its only function is towing, and it comes in at 3.9 million.
I could say it'd be cheaper. Honestly,
yeah,
it could be under 2.
Well, it's a medium-sized vessel, so I mean,
it's a strong tool. And going back to that conversation earlier, it is a tool, and it'll be utilized very well. So I do understand a higher price point, but at the same time, the fact that it has no defenses, other tools we've talked about have some defense. A Reclaimer has its defense. Even the 890 had its defense, especially the Polaris. The SRV has no defenses. It needs help in that scenario. 100% needs.
So we talked about the A2 being 44.2 million. The A1, what do you think it's supposed to be at? Just rough guess, throw a number out.
The A1's the bomber, right? The Crusader bomber.
Yeah.
I mean, again, a bomber, that should be.
What's the C1 at?
Well, I mean,
is that cheating? Is that cheating to know that answer?
Not really, because it's gonna be more expensive.
A little bit. It's gonna be a little cheating. So, we talked about the Hercules. Hercules was 18.9 for the cargo and 44.2 for the A2. So what do you think for the A1?
The A1 should be the A1 should be 15.
I'll say 12, 13.
That's on the low end. I would be fine with that. No lower than 12 though.
Yeah, lower than 10.
And then with that, I would say the C1 should be 7, 8. Yeah, 7,
yeah.
8.
Yeah.
You ready for this?
Yes.
You're not gonna like it. 4.9 for the A1 and 3.1 for the C1.
Okay, their price differential being $1 million between the two, I'm not that mad about. Way too cheap though.
Yeah, there's almost 50,000 damage per bomb drop, and there's 10 of them.
1.8 million difference.
Okay, so 2 million difference. Still, that's fine. Even if you move those up, that's okay. But the A1 needs to be insanely expensive. It's a bomber, and
I don't disagree. I do think that the Spirit series needs to go up in price a bit.
When you have ships like this that are unique, like warfare, bombers.
Mm-hmm.
These ships should be priced according
Specialized.
to the fact that they're special. They're unique ships and they have a purpose. They are purpose built, you know? And especially when it
Vulture.
comes to combat, it's purpose built. Vulture is different. It's purpose built, but it's for a different purpose. So I can understand it not being like insanely expensive. What is it? It's like 1.5.
Nope, that was its old price.
Okay. What is it now? I can't. Well, so if it's the
Two
old price, I
two
mean, I
point
guess
six.
that's not bad. My biggest problem with that, and like looking at just salvaging, and it's almost the same with mining, although I don't know those two price differences. But like, I don't like that you have two options right now. It's either you go low and slow with the vulture, or you just go all out with a reclaimer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's not the coolest. And the same with the mining. It's like you get the small
I
guy
mean,
or the big boy.
they've talked about they've talked about bringing in other size salvage vessels. In fact, they're bringing in another. They're bringing in a literal counterpart to the Vulture. They're bringing in the Venture, or not the Venture. The what do they call it? The Fortune.
Is that like the miner?
It's a Misk salvager, but
It's a
it
mist.
takes
Oh,
it takes the form of the prospector's hull.
oh. Well, so
It's
then
it
why don't they just do like? Why doesn't Drake do a mining ship then too? You know.
beats me. Honestly, beats me.
I would like the
I
idea of a medium-sized salvage vessel.
I
I
I
don't
want to
salvage,
see
but I think that would look great.
I want to see Argo make a salvager. I think it would fit in great with their fleet. I think it is something that is right up their alley. I think Argo should put out something that is medium and large size, because obviously the Reclaimer is extra large. It takes an extra large hangar to put that thing down anywhere. So
Yeah.
you still need a medium and a large size category for salvaging, and I
Yeah,
think Argo is the best one to do it.
I would agree with that.
Um,
Even Consolidated Outlands could make like some sort of industrial ship. I mean, they made a fucking base building ship, right?
so so here's something to compare against this C2, right? C2 is 18.9 million, and here you have the Misk Hull C coming in at 16.5. Can carry e- easily 3 times the cargo, 4 times the cargo even.
But it's exposed.
It's all exterior cargo, sure, but it carries 4,608 units.
Yes,
To
but I will
to
say that would be a price differentiator in my opinion.
well
Exposing your cargo versus not.
to put an asterisk on that, you can only buy commodities where you can dock the ship.
That that in and of itself is a weird concept that like there's some ships that can only do a certain thing in a certain way like that. I get it because of like yeah, it's external and all. But I don't know, it almost makes it like you almost could make that a more expensive ship because it's unique and it gets special places to do special things. You know what I mean? It's not like a Hercules. It can't just go in a hangar. It gets to go to the docking bay. You know what I mean? Like those would be selling points that a seller would be like you get the luxury of having your auto docking and your auto unloading done for you as opposed to going to those peasant hangars. You
My
know, like you would
papa.
you would price something like that up. Then the counter though is I would not pay as much for my cargo to be exposed. That would be a downside to me. I don't want everybody seeing what I'm hauling around. I'm not paying as much because now I can't, do it in
All
secrecy or
right.
privacy.
So here's another thing to compare. Um, Constellation Taurus, 174 SCU of cargo, comes in at 8.043 million UEC.
That's almost worth it for the cargo.
That honestly, and for the
That's
Well,
almost
size,
fair.
that ship, that almost is accurate because you're paying for the cargo size, but you're also paying for the defenses. It has a turret. It's a decently strong vessel to defend itself.
well,
It's
shall I remind you that the heavy fighter small sized ship of the Vanguard series comes in at 9 million. Also has a turret, has no cargo. and it has one size 5 and two 4 size roughly comparable to size 2s.
Then yeah, the
Whereas
Connie
the
could definitely
Constellation
be there.
Taurus has a fuck ton of missiles, 4 size 5s, 2 turrets. Well, technically the Taurus only has one.
Across the board, the Connies should be decently more expensive than the Vanguard series.
Yes.
100%. Like there should be a big difference there.
So either the
Because
Connies need to go up or the Vanguards need to go down.
I think it would be almost a mix of both. Take the Vanguards down a little and bring the Connies. Because how much is an Andromeda?
10.1.
Like that could that ship can be at least 14, 15 mil. And you got a snub fighter. You have it's a missile boat, dual turrets, and the cargo space. That ship's easily a
And
15
quad size
million
5s to the
dollar ship.
pilot.
Exactly. That ship is easily 15 plus. You could almost say 18 million. That could get close to $20 million for that ship. And it would be worth it. And then the Phoenix would be right under it because luxury. If not above it, because luxury.
Well, funny
You
enough,
could,
the Phoenix comes in at 14.8. So it just needs to go up another 2 mil.
yeah, I would say those two should be pretty damn close to each other. Again, I can see why most people would put the Phoenix up top. It's luxury. You make that like 19 mil. You make the Andromeda like 17 mil. You make the Aquila like 16, and then you make the Taurus like 15.
Yeah, I could
That
see
would
that.
make more
So to round all this up, we've clearly seen huge discrepancies in the pricing of these ships. We've seen even in the same series of ships, like the Constellation, right? You come in at 8 million, you exit at 14.5 million. Like the price discrepancies between these ships just don't make logical sense. Now, are they extremely detrimental to the market? Probably not. Is it going to be enough to sway someone to go for one ship or another? Absolutely. And honestly, I can't say that the pricing presently for in-game ships is in a healthy state. Is that something that
it,
maybe we all can agree on?
it definitely could be improved. I will say that like they have like some that makes sense, like with the Crusader and with the A1 and the C1. Like they got it right on the money with those two being different, where those differences are between those two. But it's when we start doing what we did and you take them across manufacturers, it's weird, but it also is like how much are they just outright saying in lore Aegis is just an expensive manufacturer, and in lore Drake is just a cheap manufacturer. There is that element of it where it's like I feel like, and with alien ships, it's alien, so it's expensive.
So,
We're always going to have
Mhm.
those. I feel like that they're always pushing in just to add that sense of like live universe feel. Like these manufacturers are unique and they're their own, and
do you
you
feel
know
that 12.4 million is too cheap or not cheap enough for 576 units of cargo?
that's the cat.
Yep,
12.4 again. That's too low. Granted,
Yeah.
it's
Drake.
Drake. Right.
Exactly. That's
That's
the
why I was
only
looking at it.
caveat. And like, what is okay? That's 576 in a cat, and then you have like, what's the closest cargo would be close to a Hercules? So 696.
Caterpillar
So
is
it's
between a Hercules and a Carrack,
okay. So, I mean,
which comes
and the
in
Herc was the C2 was 18
at
something.
34.3 million.
Eh, yeah. Which again, there is a lot more to the Carrack too than just its cargo
There
space. But
is.
yeah,
It has a snub hangar. It has a medical bay. It has 4 turrets.
yeah.
I mean, it has more to offer than just the cargo space, but at the same time, like I do feel that maybe that one's a bit too high.
The Carrack I could see being a bit too high. It could be a little down. But then again, when it's flushed out and its gameplay, like when scanning and all of that is working, if that's like actually working well and it's useful, 34 million doesn't sound as bad down there.
It
Right
also
now,
depends on how functional
it's
drones are.
yeah. I mean, there's those that's one of those ships, and when you get into those ships that don't have their gameplay fully fleshed out. You know, e-warfare is different because like it's a mechanic that they got to fix, as opposed to like they got to build out exploration and hacking. So like the Drake Herald, I joke about all the time, but like to look at its price would be like, honestly, without jokes aside, it would be a little hard because we don't know how valuable hacking game is yet. We don't really understand, is the Herald worth it in the MSR? You know, that's another hacking ship. Like, is that at a right price point for how valuable hacking's good?
Well, the
You
the
know,
Drake Herald comes in at 1.2 million.
and right now that makes total sense.
If
You
you
know,
want if you want a tank welded onto that, that's another 500k.
no, but that, like, as it stands, and even looking in the future, like for what it is, even if hacking's a really cool thing, it's a small one. You know, it's fast, but like it's not going to be able to do as much as an MSR will, and it's a Drake. So being at 1.2, I could see it going up even. You know, right now 1.2 is fine. People aren't really going to buy it. Doesn't really matter unless they just love the Herald. But down the road, when people want to get into hacking and they're interested, I could see them pricing that ship a little higher because of there's only going to be a couple of hacking. There's only a handful of hacking ships. So there's a
You know,
Vanguard one too, right?
no. No,
No?
there's no
Okay.
Vanguard series that does any hacking. However, there is one that incorporates hacking in the sense of overriding docking procedures, and that is the Anvil. Um, fuck, can't think all of a sudden.
Anvil?
Yeah, it's an Anvil ship. Hold on.
Gladiator? Is it a Hornet variant?
Is it the Gladiator
The Gladiator's
Centurion?
a bomber. It's just
No, not the Gladiator. Give me a sec.
I don't think it's an Anvil ship that you're thinking of.
It is.
Or unless it's a concept that's not out yet. If
Correct.
that's what. Uh,
Which, funny enough, I don't think it's on this list.
I don't know the Anvil concept ships well. The Liberator? No, right? I'm sure that's not it.
No, that's
Um,
the carrier.
yeah.
It's not on this list. Is it? It's not Aegis, is it?
I don't know, bruv. Because I'm not sure. I didn't know there was a ship that had a docking procedure fucking thing.
Yeah, it's meant for boarding.
It's meant
You can take it up to a capital ship. You can force it to. You can do a forced docking procedure to dock your ship to the docking collar, and then board.
I mean, that's cool.
I don't know
Fucking
why the name is escaping
wait.
me right now.
Oh no, you're talking. Oh, because I got it, and then I have it in my. Oh, what is it? No, you're right. It's an Anvil. I just don't remember what it's called. Fuck, what is the name of that ship? I know exactly what you're talking about. Know exactly what ship you're talking about.
Oops.
The
Hold on.
Liberator. No, it starts with an L. It starts with an L. What is that ship?
Legionnaire.
God, the Legionnaire. That's the one. Yep. It's the Legionnaire. That's what you're talking about.
Right
I'm like 90%
there.
sure you're talking about
Legionnaire.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's the one you're talking about.
My computer's not handling the simulation very well, but there she is.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that ship.
Anyways, so yeah, forgot where I was going with that, but I mean,
That's the docking ship. It has the
yes,
docking.
that is
Yeah.
the docking ship, but we are coming up on the end of our time. We've been at this for 2 hours, going back and forth. I think we've all made some compelling points, and I think based on the back and forth, it is safe to say that there are some ships that need to go up and some ships that need to go down, and it is definitely not in a copacetic state where it is appropriate, despite the fact that there are missing gameplay components, and despite the fact that you know, the armaments may be uh, either too expensive or not expensive enough. Um, there needs to be more balance when it comes to the in-game price of ships.
Mhm. I agree.
And that's kind of what this whole stream was about, was just kind of going over and talking about the pricing of the ships, whether we feel that they are appropriately priced or inappropriately priced. There's some that we feel seem to be right in the sweet spot. They're very acceptable. There are some ships that, while they feel acceptable, it can be argued that they're still not in a healthy spot.
Mhm.
So
Very much so.
next week, I don't know. Next week we could talk about design, but we'll consider that throughout the week. A lot of what we bring up in these captain's logs, and why it's kind of called captain's log, is a lot of what we talk about is what we've talked about as an org throughout our gameplay. So as we play through the verse throughout the week between this stream session and next stream session, there will be topics of conversation that we come across, and we just feel that they're important to bring up. Whether that is other players that come across this and watch it and agree with us or disagree with us. If you disagree, feel free to put it in the comments below. I'm happy to hear out any argument you may have, whether you feel that I'm in the wrong or that Stompy was wrong on every point that he made today. No, I'm kidding. He barely talked.
Fuck.
We love you, Stompy.
Thanks.
But anyways, that's how we bring up these topics. One of the things that we have on a regular basis touched on is the design of some of these ships and how we might have designed them a little bit differently. But who knows? That could be next week's topic, but we may come up with something that may be more pressing next week. So we do these streams every week, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern starting. They run from anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And so I guess this week we did 3 hours. Congratulations, guys. We had enough to banter about and argue back and forth. And it did get heated for a while. Krendor, I still love you. I know we have differing points of view, but I carry no hostilities away from this. I hope you don't either. The next stream, again, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Be there, be square. Make sure to hit the like button if you felt that we deserve the attention. Make sure to ring that bell or whatever those other famous streamers say at this point. But please, if you have any kind of resonance with this, leave a comment. That's the one thing that I look forward to the most. And hopefully we can get some conversation based on comments that we have from the last videos. If you're new to Star Citizen coming across this video, I do have a referral link right down here. It gives you a little bit of something, gives me a little bit of something, and if you do it at the right time, it even gets you a little bit of a gift. So bear that in mind. Until then, we will see you next week, guys. I appreciate you watching either now or in the future. So until then, we will see you next week. Deuce.
Where the minds are deep and the light always lacks. Clusters where they send you when you cross the line. A rehabilitation facility where they break your mind. I ended up there cause I couldn't toe the line. My life a crime had me doing hard time, but sitting in a cell, well, it ain't my style. I broke out once more, guess I'll be here a while. Oh, pleasure's got a hold on me, but one day I'll be free. Without the law hunting me down, I keep on breaking out, but they send me back underground. Oh, pleasure's got a hold on me, but one day I'll be free. Without the law hunting me down, I keep on breaking out, but they send me back underground. There's a bounty hunter, he's hot on my trail. Every time I slip away, he never seems to fail. Catching me just when I think I'm in the clear. Back to Clasher I go, facing my darkness fear. But I just can't run, no I can't do my my time. Instead of keep it low, I'm back to crime. Stealing chips, running scams, living on the edge. And every time I get caught, it's back to that Clasher train. Clashers call on me. One day I'll be free. Without the law hunting me down, I keep on breaking out, but they send me back underground. Oh, Clasher's got a hold on me, but one day I'll be free. Without the law hunting me down, I keep on breaking out, but they send me back underground. You think I learned my lesson, but I can't resist the thrill of the heist. It's a dangerous bliss. I'm a pirate at heart and I love the chase, even if it means Clasher back to that place. I dream of a day when I can roam free. No more guards or walls, just the black and me. But until that day comes, I'll be running wild, breaking out, getting caught, Clasher's only child. Oh, Clasher's got on me. One day I'll be free. Without the law hunting me down, I keep on breaking out, but they send me back underground. One day I'll find a way to make my final break. So that's a bounty hunter for my freedom's sake. No more cells or guards, just the stars and me. I'll live my life as I please, finally be free. When I break those chains, I'll never look back. Clasher's in my past, no more beaten track. I'll fly the bottle, just my ship and I. No more walls or bars, just the endless sky. Until that day, I'll keep playing the game. Breaking out, getting caught, it's all the same. Clasher's my home, for better or worse. But one day I'll break that curse. Oh, Clasher's got a hold on me, but one day I'll be free. Without the law hunting me down, I keep on breaking out, but they send me back underground. One day I'll find a way to make my final break. So that's that bounty hunter for my freedom's sake. No more cells or guards, just the stars and me. I'll live my life as I please, finally be free. And when I break those chains, I'll never look back. Clasher's in my past, no more beaten track. I'll be running once, no more walls or bars, just the endless sky. But until that day, I'll keep playing the game. Breaking out, getting caught, it's all the same. Clasher's my home, for better or worse, but one day I'll break that curse.